for you today. Good morning. 6:05 on a Thursday. Glad you're here on 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Well, this is embarrassing for Kansas City. And I never want to embarrass our town, but the headlines are the headlines. And this was a worldwide headline in the Daily Mail yesterday. And here's how the headline reads. Midwest city's downtown is now Mad Max-style hellhole, where locals are scared to go out after 8 p.m. Wow. That is not the headline that any of us want to be written about our town and our community. But that was the headline in the Daily Mail yesterday. And they took a lot of the Fox 4 reporting from 2 days ago that we talked about yesterday on the show, where they highlighted some of the issues of crime that obviously have been far too frequent and common in parts of Kansas City, downtown, Crossroads Plaza, and all the places that we have talked about. And this is the kind of story that for many people that may not look at Kansas City and think about crime. They might think about crime with St. Louis. They might think about crime with Chicago, right? They get more national attention. They might say, what? In Kansas City? This is going to be an eye-opener for a lot of people who think about our town and just think about Patrick Mahomes and barbecue. We have been able to hide behind the St. Louis's of the world and the Chicago's of the world when it comes to violent crime in particular for the last several years because, well, they've had it worse. St. Louis has had it worse, and Chicago is just, one of the top 3 cities in the country, population-wise, so that's always going to get more attention. Not us, but people here in Kansas City who have said, well, gosh, we dodged a bullet there. They're not looking at us. Good thing for that. Well, now people are. We are dealing with, obviously, a homicide trend that did come down last year, about 20% from the record highs of 23, right? So you give credit where it's due. But you also had non-fatal shootings trend in the wrong direction. So you had a lot of things going on over the last 5 years that have been ugly and have been embarrassing for this town, and most importantly, have resulted in too many people losing their lives. That's the most important part. And we've been talking about these issues from the police force being down 300-400 cops, a prosecutor's office that is now in new hands but was in awful hands with Gene Peters Baker for the better part of a decade. You had members of city council who were actively trying to promote defund the police efforts over the last few years. And while they lost on those efforts, that still crushes morale of your men and women in law enforcement. And that resulted in early retirements. That hampered recruiting. And that sets you back years. You can't have a robust defund the police movement. You see guys and gals leave the police force, right? Then you also see nobody want to join the police force and then be like, yeah, I was just kidding about that. That was a bad idea. Come on in, come work for us. That doesn't turn around overnight. That takes years to turn around. And that's why we're having some of these problems that we've been having in this town for far too long. So local media has been on it. And this guy, Malik Jackson at Fox 4, man, he's been on a heater. Malik, he's been on a heater. So Quinton Lucas shows up to the Fox 4 headquarters yesterday. And the mayor will be on this show at 7:30 this morning. So you do not want to miss that. Malik Jackson gets the mayor to show up at the Fox 4 headquarters yesterday. And the quick backstory here is the owner of a business in the Crossroads shared a screenshot with Fox 4 that they had texted the mayor over the weekend about crime happening outside of their business. And there was a read receipt on the text message.
He would not respond to the text messages.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. You do a
that's
great
my news voice.
You do a great Malik Jackson. You really do.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
If this radio thing doesn't work out, you got a future. You got a future there, Mark. So Malik gets the mayor over to the Fox 4 newsroom, and he says, hey, this business owner in the Crossroads says he texted you about this crime happening, and you didn't respond. And the mayor does I don't know what we're talking about here. I didn't get the text, but there was a read receipt on the text. And I don't know if this is new on the newer iPhones or the updated iOS, but I have an iPhone. I just got the 16. I had an old iPhone for years, like an iPhone 12. And now when you text people who don't have iPhones, they have the green bubbles. You now get the read receipts, which you used to only get when they had an iPhone, but now you can see it if they have an Android.
Yes, there was some type of merger where it finally happened where everybody can see the read receipts.
Well, that one screwed Quinton Lucas here over the weekend because this guy, this business owner, had a read receipt on a green bubble with the mayor. So Malik Jackson, Fox 4 reporter, has the mayor at Fox 4 yesterday, and they went back and forth on this.
Just don't misrepresent.
I don't think it's a misrepresentation.
It is a misrepresentation.
Okay, so then why is the message showing that it was read?
You didn't. I don't even know what he said. By the way, could you show me actually
Oh
his,
my
his
God.
original
So for
message?
the third time, we'll go back through this.
Third time. Oh, man, that was getting testy. That was getting testy. Old Malik and Mayor Q going back and forth at Fox 4 yesterday. This was on a Facebook reel. Here we go.
Tuesday, I reported about rising crime in downtown Kansas City, from reckless ATV and dirt bike riders riding through the streets of downtown Kansas City to restaurants because of this concern, and others threatening to leave the downtown area altogether, and just overall safety concerns. Well, on Wednesday, Mayor Quinton Lucas was focused on a text message and that story, even jumping in Fox 4's Facebook comment section. A Crossroads business owner sent a message to the number the mayor has shared publicly. We verified the number was correct. It was. The mayor even acknowledged it was the right number. The text is marked with the iPhone read receipt, and yet the mayor says he never got the message, even though the receipts say otherwise. We tried to ask him about the problem business owners say is getting worse. The mayor told us that conversation could wait because he had an event to go to. For our full story, you can go to fox4kc.com. And of course, as always, we will stay on top of the story.
There you go. Malik Jackson, Fox 4, back and forth with the mayor. Mark's clapping along in there. He loves it. He loves it. That's
great job.
That's your man, Malik Jackson. You love that guy. You love him.
This was so easy for the mayor. I just looked at it and I forgot to respond.
Dude, I know the whole city has your number. Okay, he's given out his cell phone publicly for years. Why he's getting in the weeds on whether or not he received a text message from a business owner who's dealing with crime outside of his business. Like, dude, yeah, I got the text. I got 2 little kids. The whole town has my cell phone. I know we've got problems, but you've got to be calling 911, not texting me when there's crime happening outside of your business. I know this won't be popular, and this is not meant to defend the mayor in any way, okay? We've disagreed vehemently on how to handle crime in Kansas City. But I'm telling you right now, my business is dealing with crime. I'm not texting the mayor. I might text him after the fact and say, listen, just so you know, we got more crime here in the Crossroads. We got problems. I'm just alerting you of this because you may not hear it on the news. That's one thing. And then say, hey, thanks for the heads up. You know, we're working on it. We're doing what we can, blah, 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 whatever political thing he wants to say. But man, my first reaction, if I got crime happening outside of my business, is not, let me text the mayor. What's he supposed to do? I mean, seriously, in that moment, what is he supposed to do? And I think he's been wrong on a lot of things on public safety. We've talked about that on the show. He's been on the show to talk about that and defend himself. But this one, it's like, this is easy. This is not difficult at all. Did he get maybe caught with his pants down, lying about whether or not he saw a text? Sure. I mean, is that the thing that's going to save anybody's life in this town? No, it's not. 913-408-7957. I want to get to you. I know the opinions are rolling in. Text line is busy already. Phones as well. Mike, you're first up. Go ahead, big guy.
Okay, you and your 3 kids. I got kids. I have had my kids when they were very little, like, kindergarten age. They get hold of my cell phone and scroll through my messages. And the message would show as read, even though I didn't know I got a message.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what happened with Lucas, but there is a legitimate possibility that he's not lying.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old his kids are or anything. That somebody's playing with a cell phone and starting to read his messages, and all of a sudden message shows read, but he didn't look at it. I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's happened to me just personally with my kids.
Yeah. And Mike, I know, we've talked before, obviously. You're not looking to give the mayor the benefit of the doubt here. Just in general.
I'm just saying in general.
I know. But my point is, you're not a staunch defender of the mayor. So you're just saying, hey, this is entirely possible that he didn't see the text message. And getting into a, pissing contest over this is not worth anybody's time.
Yeah, we're discussing how many angels can discuss a dance on the head of a pin while the city's burning down.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Mike. Listen, I will admit, one of my qualities that I don't like about myself is I am bad sometimes at getting back to text messages. I just am. I'll read something and then I'll say, okay, I'm going to see that. I read it. I'm going to put it on hold and I will get back to that person. And then I admit it takes me 12 hours and running around the house and whatever it might be. If it's not super immediate or super urgent, I admit I will just be like, okay, I saw it. I acknowledge it. I probably should say something right now, but I put my phone down and I don't. It's not a trait I like about myself, but also we're in a world now where, man, you are just getting messages and notices nonstop. Growing up, if somebody wanted to get a hold of my parents in the 90s, they had to pick up a phone. And they'd have to call a house phone, too. It wasn't like the old cell phone. Or you send an email and maybe you get back to them in a couple days.
I've done that too, where my buddy in California texts me. He texts me at 9 o'clock his time. It's 11 our time. I'm already asleep. I see it at 4:30 in the morning. I don't want to text him back at 2:30 his time. And then it's like, all right, when do I text him?
Yes. I mean, it's that's something that all of us deal with. And I admit I'm not great at it sometimes. So this whole thing, Malik Jackson, Fox 4, Quinton Lucas, how are we going to handle the text messages? What do we do? Who's right? Who's wrong? In the end, we have a massive crime problem in Kansas City. And I'm glad it's getting attention beyond this show because we're the ones who have been banging this drum on increases in not just violent crime, but property crime and sideshows in a way that other media in Kansas City have not touched. They just haven't done it because they've wanted to, I believe, be in protection mode. Well, it seems like the gloves are off. And that's good for the city to be bringing attention to this stuff, as unfortunate as it is. But let's not get bogged down in the weeds of who's responding to text messages based on read receipts. As much as I love the reporting work that Malik Jackson is doing. 913-408-7957.
As a boomer, I just scoff at the whole notion of social media being official communique in general.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that. Maybe, and you guys have accepted Twitter more, but I'm like, this is a joke. It's online. It's just social media.
Yeah, man. And that's where the mayor's also in the Facebook comments at Fox 4 as well. Go figure. We'll get to Roger Marshall, the Kansas U.S. Senator. He will be here at 6:35. That's 15 minutes away on KCMO. We'll get to you as well. 913-408-7957.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show, we'll discuss and analyze the politics of the day, plus what's this big announcement Trump is teasing, coming up at 2 o'clock on 95.7 KCMO.
One of the big announcements that is set to come down from President Trump, I don't know if he got ahead of himself this morning, but the President of the United States announcing here on Truth Social. Now, John, you're saying that official business can't be done on Truth Social. Tell that to Trump, all right?
Well, that's where it started. I didn't say it couldn't be, but I don't accept it personally. And I thought he was a genius at trolling people.
Fair enough. Here was Trump just about a half hour ago on Truth Social. The agreement with the United Kingdom is a full and comprehensive one that will cement the relationship between the United States and the UK for many years to come. Because of our longtime history and allegiance together, it is a great honor to have the UK as our first announcement. Many other deals, which are in serious stages of negotiation, to follow. And we still kicked your butts in the war. No, I added that part. That was not actually in the Truth Social from the President of the United States, but could have been. Wouldn't have shocked me if he slipped that in there at the very end, right? That would have been very Trump of him. So we also know that there is a press conference happening at the White House this morning at 9 o'clock. If we start getting some trade deals coming in hot and heavy in the days ahead, the markets, I don't think the markets are going to skyrocket because I actually think they've priced in some of these trade deals getting done. I don't think there's going to be a massive boon, but I believe what everybody is waiting for is China. And apparently there are going to be some early quasi-negotiations, conversations happening as soon as this weekend between Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the Chinese Communist Party. That's the big kahuna. All administration is a simple one. Lock up some of these trade deals with allies, announce them, get them done, start to build that snowball as it rolls downhill. And then the momentum is going to be such where China's going to feel like it's got to come to the negotiating table. And I'm good with that because ultimately that's the one that you got to knock out of the park. These other trade deals, I believe the rest of these trade deals are largely, I don't want to say symbolic. They're going to be better deals for the United States. But the one that everyone's going to be waiting to see how it plays out on the world stage is what we end up doing with China. And it may take some time. It will take some time.
Yeah, you're dealing with your geopolitical foe here.
Yes.
The rest are more allies in general.
Yeah. China's the bad guys.
I don't like that. I think the media is helping China. They're dragging their feet. Oh, they're it's all negative slant about Trump being twisted and arm wrestled. I'm like, would you quit carrying China's water? They're hurting.
Well, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
They love the Chinese.
Yeah, don't believe it.
They hate Trump more than anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's about. Their Trump derangement. And in the end, if that means they have to carry China's water, they'll do it. I mean, anything to get Trump, okay?
Fake news.
I mean, anything they can do to get after Trump and to make Trump look bad, they're going to do, even if that means making China look good, even if that means picking China's side in this negotiation. They're more than happy to do it. They don't care. I mean, they've completely lost their minds, despite the fact that Trump is back in the White House because of them, right? Because of them, because of their treatment of him, because the Democrats in general, even when they got power with Joe Biden, could not take away their infatuation from the president, former president, now current president of the United States. They could not help themselves. They allowed Trump to make the comeback that he did. He makes the ultimate comeback after nearly getting killed a couple of times. Now, he's got the swagger, the confidence, and the focus that he did not have in many respects during his first term, and he's kicking butt doing it. He's taken some big gambles. There's no doubt about it. He's taken some big swings here with the tariffs and everything else going on. Cuts and everything else, man, we are going to be off to the races. There's no doubt about it. Kansas U.S. Senator Roger Marshall will be here coming up about a big bill that he is trying to get passed and what's happening with that big, beautiful bill. Roger Marshall is next.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
We always appreciate the time of Kansas U.S. Senator Roger Marshall joining us here on 95.7 FM KCMO, streaming as always on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Senator, good morning, and I just want to start off with some breaking news. The president announcing here in the last half hour on Truth Social that they have come to an agreement with the United Kingdom, and that could be part of, I guess, today's announcement that is coming at 9 o'clock Central Time. So what's your reaction to this news from the president, and what's to come here?
Well, Pete, good morning to you and all your listeners. I would just encourage everyone to take a deep breath here as we get through these next 60 or 70 days. I think the biggest news here is here's a template. All the other nations can look at this trade plan and say, here's what the United States expects. If you treat us fairly, we'll treat you fairly. We are the largest consumer in the world. And we are in the catbird seat. You know, for instance, Mexico and Canada, 70% of their exports come to this country, 80% of them, versus only, 17% of our exports go to those particular countries. UK, not a huge market, but I think it's a sign of an ally saying, okay, let's treat America fairly. So I think it's a good first step. And I don't have to tell you, you know what, we got China this weekend. The Secretary of Treasury emailed me yesterday, said he's excited to go over there. So there's a lot happening in the world of Donald Trump.
So is this really about, and this is what I speculated earlier, is this really about stacking up some wins, so to speak, with allies? And then everyone knows that China is obviously the bull in the China shop, so to speak. So is that what this deal with the UK and hopefully some others coming out are really about, just making it look like the world is coming together, really, frankly, against the Chinese?
Well, I think it's even more than that. I still would encourage us to not let China off the hook. As important as they are to the Kansas farmer, I want to replace those markets with year-round E15, jet fuel, those types of things. So I think we need to be careful. There's so much more than just the tariff rates when it comes to China. They still are intellectual property. 90% of the counterfeits that are coming to this country are made in fentanyl issue you and I've discussed multiple times on your show. It goes on and on and on and on. So I think we need to really, really hold China accountable here. And we'll just see. Again, we're the largest consumer in the world. This American consumer is so important to the world economy. So I'm just not ready to say, let's let China off the hook yet. Let's give the president a little bit of airspace here and see if he can negotiate something that's going to be a long-term solution. I think about those Chiefs. We need a long-term solution at left tackle here. Not a short-term solution, and we need a long-term solution with China.
Yeah, hopefully Josh Simmons part of that answer after the draft a couple of weeks back. Now, what are you saying and what are you hearing from Kansas farmers? New York Post and a lot of others have had different stories, but I'm reading this headline from the New York Post. U.S. farmers in full-blown crisis as Chinese orders for pork soybeans plunge over the tariffs. So how are you calming that industry here in Kansas, the ag industry?
Well, number one, the ag economy is in great despair, not because of these tariffs, but because of Joe Biden's policy. So last year, we had a record drop in net farm income, a record drop because of high interest rates, high fuel prices, high fertilizer prices as well, and not so good commodity prices as well. So the reason that the ag economy is in despair is because of Joe Biden. The only reason it's surviving in Kansas is because of the cattle industry and the dairy industry. So President Trump negotiated huge deals with Mexico and Canada, with South Korea, Japan, and China phase one. And because of those, the cattle industry and the dairy industry is carrying agriculture in Kansas. And put it in perspective, wheat is probably $1.5 billion business in Kansas, but beef industry is probably $15 billion. So it's 10x. That's how important the cattle industry is in Kansas as well. We just gave the farmers $10 billion 2 weeks ago. And in an amazing amount of time, President Trump got that $10 billion into farmers' bank accounts as they take out loans for this year's crops. $450 million of that went to Kansas farmers. So a third of the value of the wheat crop, President Trump just subsidized the farmers. Now, I'm not proud of that. we want trade and not aid. But President Trump absolutely prioritizes the American farmer. And yeah, you're going to be able to find some very disgruntled farmers out there, just like you would in any industry. And I'm doing everything I can to help them in this reconciliation bill. I'm locked in on this tax credit called 45Z, which would allow us to take corn and sorghum, soybeans, and turn it into jet fuel.
This is Senator Roger Marshall, of course, state of Kansas on KCMO. So take me through, obviously, the big, beautiful bill, as it's been dubbed, is getting negotiated right now. And you're pushing hard on this no tax on overtime. How does that part of this bill, how does that fit its way in? And what exactly are the details behind what that would look like?
Right. So certainly President Trump and myself have prioritized a tax cut for hardworking men and women, people that bring their lunch pail to work. I think of all of our union workers there in the Kansas City metro area, as well as people that, again, that work for a living, that do overtime. And what this would allow is up to a $10,000 deduction for your first $10,000 of overtime in a given year, $20,000 if it's a couple. And if you think about that, a couple had $20,000 of overtime, they would get to keep $4,000 more of their hard-earned money. So put it in perspective. If we don't get this tax cuts bill done and extend the Trump tax cuts, it's going to cost them $2,000 more taxes. So I'm trying to save that $2,000, give them another $4,000. You got a couple out there making $60,000, $80,000 a year, $100,000. That's a lot of money, Pete. So we want to make sure that we prioritize taking care of hardworking men and women across the country.
So you can get this, hopefully, into the big, beautiful bill, and then it can pass with just a 51-vote majority in the Senate. That's the goal here, right?
You got it. So most things in the Senate take 60 votes, but under this what's called reconciliation process, we can do it with just 50 votes in the Senate. So we have the majority in the House, not much of one. So they need to, I'm going to jump to the quick here, Pete. The big hang up is how much we're willing to cut. All of us have lots of ideas where to give tax breaks to. President Trump wants to prioritize any new tax cuts to hardworking men and women. But the challenge right now is, can the House come up with some cuts? And I'll give you for instance, Medicaid spending has went up 50% in 5 years. Medicaid spending went up 50% in 5 years. We went from 70 million to over 90 million people on Medicaid the last 5 years. Now, my belief is we need to strengthen Medicaid for those who need it the most. We need to strengthen Medicaid for those who need it the most. And right now we're going to go broke and no one's going to have anything if we don't get our hands around that particular issue. So what's happening now is the House needs to decide how much money are they willing to save hardworking Americans on tax money and Medicaid, and then let's take some of that money and help me give a tax break on that overtime, if that makes sense.
So what is that, when it comes to Medicaid, is that really about making sure that able-bodied citizens are not milking the system? And how do you actually go about implementing that?
Yeah, so I think that's, step number one is there's 7 million healthy men, working-age men that are out there right now in the country that are not working. And I don't have a number how many of them are on Medicaid and food stamps right now. But we would like to put work requirements on them and have them very consistent on all the social programs, on food stamps as well as this particular issue as well. And what it probably looks like is 80 hours a month that we would like for you to either work, volunteer, or go to school. 80 hours a month. And that's just it. I want to give people a hand up, not just a handout. So I'm trying to work for special Pell Grant money where you could use it in an apprenticeship or use it on some type of a short-term technical college, that type of thing. But we need to move people from a handout to a hand up to get people back to work. I think the greatest safety net in the entire country is a job, Pete. I think when you have a job, it brings purpose, it brings meaning to your life, it helps your mental health. And I think deep inside of us, every one of us wants to take care of our family. And I think that we need to help people do that.
What's your timeline? What are you thinking and what are you hearing about a timeline to get this thing done and get it passed?
Yeah, I think the first deadline is Memorial Day.
Okay.
So the House's goal is to get their stuff done on Memorial Day, and then we're going to take their bill and try to make it better. We're going to try to save more money after we get their bill. We're with a 3-seat majority. We're actually a little bit more conservative than the House is. That's unusual in America. The Republican Senate is more conservative than the House. You think about the SALT tax, and that we don't have a senator from a high tax state like Illinois or California, or New York, versus there's House members that have to live with that situation as well. So if they get it done by Memorial Day, if we got our work done by July 4th, it would be a miracle. But that, you have to have a goal. And part of the goal, the backdrop of this, is we're facing a financial cliff when it comes to what the debt limit is for the country. It might come June, July, August, I'm not sure, but we may be able to use that as a leverage to force Congress to get its job done. We do much better, it seems like, when we have a forced deadline upon us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. That's very true. It's like in college, you got to cram for that final exam, Senator. So we'll see how that plays out. And we do appreciate your time, as always, on a Thursday morning on KCMO. Thanks so much.
Yeah, Pete, I got a quick analogy for you. You should have asked me how you thought the draft was, and I would say, well, I don't know. I'll tell you in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's good.
And I just want your listeners to sit there and think about, okay, I'm going to make a decision today up here. I'm going to vote on something. The news is going to blast me. And sometimes it takes 5 or 10 or 20 years for some of these things to come to fruition. Think back to President Eisenhower and how it took decades to some of his projects to come to fruition as well. So you don't always know on draft night who was right or who was wrong, but I'm trying to take every decision, weigh all the pros and cons, the risk and benefits, and do the best I can for future generations.
Well, it's as the president has said before, China's playing a 100-year game, and we've been playing quarter to quarter for far too long. And he's at that, and that's the point you're making, I think, here.
Yes, sir, Pete.
Good
Thanks so
stuff.
much for having me.
Thank you, Senator. Have a great week. There you go. Roger Marshall on KCMO 95.7 FM. Always good to have him on the show. The top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour. We call it the 6 at 6. That is next on KCMO.
Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
.651 on a Thursday. Mayor Lucas will be here at 7:30 on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. But it is that time of the morning. Let's do it.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
I got to start here. Man, how about those Royals? Woo! Unbelievable. The Royals win again yesterday, beating the White Sox 2-1, fifth straight victory. 13 wins in their last 15 games.
Waka, waka, waka. What a start.
Oh, my goodness. 7 innings pitched for Michael Wacha. 3 hits, no runs. His ERA is now under 3. He is 5-1 with a .88 ERA in his last 6 starts against the White Sox. He owns the White Sox. That's from Joel Goldberg's X account last night. Bobby Witt Jr. broke a scoreless tie with his 5th homer of the season. Man, they are rolling. And it is fun to watch.
2.
For the 6 at 6, the President of the United States announcing this morning that the U.S. has reached a full and comprehensive trade agreement with the U.K., posting on Truth Social that because of our longtime history and allegiance together, it is a great honor to have the United Kingdom as our first announcement. Many other deals, which are in serious stages of negotiation, to follow. There will also be a press conference coming up today at 9 o'clock Central Time from the president, and we will dip into that later this morning. So hopefully you'll stay with us all morning long. We'll carry some of that in the 9 o'clock hour here on KCMO Talk Radio.
Number 3.
Well, no Pope. We still are waiting on the Pope. The black smoke again rose early this morning, signifying the end of the second round of voting. 3 ballots and no consensus to replace Pope Francis. So now we wait and wait and wait and wait. But hey, speaking of the NFL draft with Roger Marshall earlier, sometimes day 3, round 3, that's where you find some value. I guess technically that would be round 4 of the NFL draft. That's what starts day 3. But you can find a lot of high-quality guys still on the board. So to bring it all back to the NFL draft, there's still a lot of talent out there. We just got to find consensus on who the next pope is going to be after Pope Francis died on April 21st. And now you have to get 2/3 majority of the voting cardinals. White smoke will signify a new pope has been elected. And speaking of black smoke, did you see that black smoke ring out in Bonner Springs? It went viral last night on social media. It's on my X account, at Pete Mundo. A lot of you shared it on X and asked about it. But Bonner Springs, Kansas, is where a man was filming a floating black ring in the sky during a motorcycle ride yesterday. So there's a lot of speculation. Fox Weather reporting that the rare smoke ring was most likely the result of some type of explosion. They likened it to the formation of a mushroom cloud where rapidly rising air traps smoke in a ring-like formation because it's moving faster than the surrounding air. But it is, I don't know, I've never seen anything like it. It's very bizarre. And you can find it on the X account, at Pete Mundo. I don't know if your mic's not on there, John, or what's going on. I don't hear him, though. All right, I can't hear him, so.
Number 4.
Next up for the 6 at 6. Let's go to, have you seen the story in the Aspen Place apartments down in Gardner? Hundreds of residents from the Aspen Place apartments are urgently seeking new homes. The city condemned the complex due to safety reasons, giving them just 48 hours to move out. So you've got 200 families who have turned to Grace Baptist Church in Gardner for help. That's been a big deal. The Salvation Army is also stepping in and trying to give people temporary housing after the Aspen Place apartments have been condemned by the city due to various health and safety hazards. So the community is stepping out. And to accommodate residents, also, you've got the field house there that will be opened 2 additional days, May 8th and May 9th, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So this is getting a lot of attention, and it should be down there in Gardner, because this is a horrible situation that these people are dealing with. 48 hours to basically get out of their homes. And thankfully, you've got a lot of folks in the community stepping up, and I'm glad that they are down there in Gardner.
Number 5.
Next up for the 6 at 6, Daily Mail writing about crime in Kansas City. Headlined, Midwest city's downtown is now Mad Max-style hellhole, where locals are scared to go out after 8 p.m. This is not the kind of worldwide attention Kansas City wants to be receiving. Kansas City likes to be known for Patrick Mahomes and barbecue, and that's about it. Now, the Daily Mail is picking up on the crime situation in this town, and I posted that on X yesterday too and got a ton of traction because nobody wants this to be the thing that Kansas City is getting known for. We've been able to kind of hide behind St. Louis and the crime where it's like, well, they're a lot worse than we are. Same thing with Chicago, much bigger city in the Midwest, obviously. But if Kansas City is getting this kind of worldwide attention in the Daily Mail, that is not a good sign at all. And the mayor will be here at 7:30 to talk about that and more. And lastly,
Number 6.
Yelp ranking cities for barbecue. This dropped yesterday. Kansas City coming in third on this list behind Austin and San Antonio. And I'm sorry, but I'm
getting pissed now.
I've been down to Austin. I've had their barbecue. It's overrated. It's not Kansas City barbecue. You'll never convince me otherwise. And San Antonio, please. Great town for Mexican food. That is not a barbecue
And
town.
bodegas.
Yes, a lot of bodegas down there. Good point. Joe Biden loves her bodega.
Mm-hmm.
But Kansas City should be one. Comes in at 3 on the Yelp cities for best barbecue. I'll let it slide for now because it's Thursday. It's Friday Eve. We're in a good mood, but that's total nonsense. Coming up next, 6 at 6 in the books, I am going to give you something that you have not heard yet in Kansas City on what criminals may be coming back to our town courtesy of Joe Biden. I'll explain next. You got a potentially bad situation coming to the Kansas City area, and you're going to hear this first and maybe only on KCMO. I hope that's not the case. But I started hearing some of this from folks in law enforcement over the last couple of days. And do you remember the end of Joe Biden's term? When, of course, he was giving pardons to, everybody with the last name Biden. Remember that? Like, if you had the last name Biden, you were getting a pardon, right? And that was a big story, national story. And you also had about 36 people who were on death row who basically had their sentences commuted to be life in prison without parole. That got a lot of attention as well. Well, what got overlooked, and I admit we were guilty of this to some degree, is that Joe Biden announced right before he left office that he was commuting the sentences of nearly 2,500 people convicted of non-violent drug crimes. So that came out, and, we didn't really know what it meant, but the administration and Joe Biden, now, I don't know if he actually knew what he was signing with any of this stuff, because God knows what kind of shape the man was in at the end of his tenure. But he signed this, and, they pitched it as, hey, these are people who are convicted of nonviolent drug crimes, and they're serving far longer sentences than they would receive today.
I will interject. There were some e-signings there, remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
The old
electronic signatures.
Yeah. What is Trump calling it, too? The fake pen that he was using or something. Trump's like, I signed my own executive orders. So I got this on good authority from law enforcement here around Kansas City, that now, of those 2,500 people convicted who Joe Biden commuted the sentences of, we have 31 people in the Kansas City metropolitan area that had their sentences commuted by the Biden administration and released from prison, 11 from KCK, and 21 from KCMO. And these are individuals who were charged with distribution of crack cocaine, methamphetamine, both in some cases, use of firearms, in furtherance of drug trafficking offenses. As one person told me in law enforcement in the area, most of these people are violent individuals that ran large drug operations and intimidated witnesses and victims. Most are affiliated with well-known street gangs around Kansas City. Groups like Tasha Gang, Mob Money. Sounds like a rap group. These are the same individuals, local, state, and federal law enforcement worked hard to get off our streets. You had law enforcement around Kansas City who literally risked their lives to arrest these people and get them convicted of federal crimes, right? Federal charges. It's not like your local municipal ordinance that got violated here. Joe Biden commuted these sentences. And now we are going to be releasing dozens of people back onto the streets of Kansas City who have very violent backgrounds. Who in their right mind would do this? Unless you want more chaos and more crime and more destruction in your urban cores in particular, because you know where these people are going back to, right? Not going back to Leawood. Promise you that. So where and why would you do such a thing? Unless you want to destroy the communities that you insist you fought for politically your entire life. Why would you do this? I mean, nobody in their right mind, politics aside, would say, okay, I'm going to put these people back into these communities, like here in Kansas City, on both sides of our state line, and think that this is good for anybody. When these are violent people who oftentimes, were arrested by our own law enforcement around Kansas City, they risked their lives on the job to get these people arrested. They got them brought up on federal charges. They're in prison, and now they're going to be back out on the streets around Kansas City. And as is oftentimes the case, these people, as I've been told by law enforcement, are very dangerous individuals. They intimidate witnesses, and they oftentimes don't get charged and can't get charged with what they actually did. And later they'll be caught on lower level things like selling drugs. But that's oftentimes because they could not get the evidence against them for the much more violent activities that they were involved in. And these people are now going to be back in and around Kansas City looking for something to do. You think they're all going to be a bunch of choir boys when they come back here and get released onto the streets of KCMO and KCK? What do you think? Please, you know the answer and I know the answer. They're not coming back here, to volunteer for the local churches. Maybe one will, okay? Maybe there's that one that just had, found Jesus in church or found Jesus in prison and is going to be a totally changed individual. That's always possible. And you always hope and pray for that. But that's not going to be the bulk of these people, okay? They're going to be back to a life of crime. They're going to be thanking Joe Biden while they do it, by the way. Don't forget that. They're going to be thanking Joe Biden while they do it. And they are going to make this community much less safe. And you can thank and look back to the 2,500 people who Joe Biden commuted the sentences of right before he left office. This was back on January 17th that this happened. And yeah, it got a lot of attention about how Hunter and everybody else with a Biden last name got their pardons. But now you also have people with very violent backgrounds who are going to be back in Kansas City. And there's no one in their right mind who should be defending this. Nobody. I mean, law enforcement, I know for a fact right now in Kansas City, I've talked to them, they're up in arms about this. I mean, they've got their hands full as is right now, right? We've talked about the issues happening in KCMO. But now both sides of the state line, they're going to have to keep an eye on these people who they've already arrested, and they can thank Joe Biden for letting them back out onto the streets. John's on KCMO. Hey, John, good morning. What's going on?
Well, you can probably bet that those 31 individuals are not Mundo in the Morning listeners.
That's probably a safe bet. But, hey, if they're converted, if they've had that total change of heart, I mean, I hope they're here.
God bless them and welcome to the family.
Yeah, I like that, John.
But the thing about it is in Topeka, there was like a dozen individuals that I was talking to the sheriff. He said there's about 12 people that were in jail all at the same time. And it seemed to be a coincidence that most all the car break-ins and thefts, almost zero, because those 12 people were in jail at the same time. They said, is that a coincidence? We think not. So if that's 12 people in Topeka and the car break-ins, people getting in your car, stealing stuff out of your car, just small little petty stuff. If that's the case there, then what can 31 people who are, used to crime, used to doing bad crime on a major scale do to a city like Kansas City, and what kind of multiplication effect will it have on crime down the ladder? Because, they're not doing the petty stuff. The people doing the petty stuff are them because it goes up the ladder.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're right, John. You're absolutely right, man. And that's why this is horrible news for Kansas City. And think about, too, some of the other major American cities. What do you think they're looking at? Right? Like these people, you got 1,500 people now. How many are going back to New York and L.A. and Chicago and Dallas and St. Louis? I mean, we've got a few dozen here that are coming back to Kansas City. But you are now putting thousands of violent people back onto the streets in your urban cores. They're not going to your ritzy suburbs, okay? They're not going to your rural communities for the most part. They are going to be in urban cores terrorizing people and terrorizing communities that have dealt with the bulk of poor policies on crime over the last few years that have been led by Joe Biden and, frankly, his political allies. But they're the ones who insist they're going to be helping urban cores around America. They should put thousands of violent people back into urban cores, including here in Kansas City. Please. I really hope. And we have grown our audience, obviously, all around Kansas City. It's been tremendous what this show and what this station has done over the last 18 to 24 months in particular. And we've seen that growth in parts of Kansas City where maybe we did not previously have high listenership. People are waking up. And the sooner they wake up to this, the better. Because they are going to be terrorizing people in poor communities around Kansas City who can't get out of them. They can't move. They don't have the money to move. And that's where these people are going. 913-408-7957. Mayor Lucas will be here coming up at 7:35 on 95.7 FM. Do not miss that. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Who wants to tell somebody who was quoted in the Kansas City Star something they desperately need to hear? I'll explain that one next.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
I love when they write these stories and like you think there's going to be some big hook and some big piece of news, and then there never is. But I suppose for the Kansas City Star, that can be par for the course. Headline here, talk of a Royal Stadium in North Kansas City stir hope, doubt in Clay County. And I'm like, all right, what's the big news? What do they got for us here? Stirring hope and doubt. Well, there really was no news. They have this report here. Sources told the Kansas City Star last month the Royals have talked with the Merriman family, who control a site encompassing nearly 100 acres in North Kansas City, south of Armour Road. But the degree to which the team is interested in the location isn't yet known. Yeah, they've talked to the Merriman family for years. They own that piece of land, the old bowling alley land, due south of the main drag there, chapels and whatnot. And they've been talking to the family for years. This is not a family that likes to draw a lot of attention to itself in Kansas City. They have a lot of power. They do a lot of great work. But they're not looking for attention here. So this is not news. Like, sources told the Star. Okay, I mean, between this show and Keatsman's been obviously all over it. We've got more reporting and more sources on this story than the Star. 2 sports radio stations. When's Basset Hound Bob going to be right on something, huh? They go into spring campus, just got to dot the I's and cross the T's. Whoops, Fiserv's coming in. Oh. There you go, Mark. That's a good Basset Hound out of you, buddy. That's good. Not a bulldog. No, it's Basset Hound. Basset Hound Bob. Nice job there. Well done, Mark. So there's no news in here. They then go on to talk to just like different random people around North Kansas City to get their general thoughts. And this line in particular stood out to me. They talked to this guy, John. John's 56 years old. He's lived in North Kansas City since 2007, and he thinks of himself as a super fan. He hasn't gone to a game in a few years, but he remembers going to the K as a kid when it first opened up in 1973. He loves the current field, but said it's getting up there in age. Okay, who cares? I mean, who cares? They put a good baseball product on the field, you're going to go. No one's ever not gone to a sporting event because, well, I don't know, that stadium, it's too old. Not the amenities aren't good. Not like, there's something wrong with it. It's too hard to get to. Just simply, it's getting up there in age. Nobody has ever decided to go to a sporting event because the stadium's old. You may not like the amenities and what the stadium offers or how to get there, but no one's ever not gone to a game because of the age of a stadium. He says here, or the Star says, as a North Kansas City resident, he'd love for the stadium to be up north, and he is prepared to foot the bill. Telling the Star, luckily right now, North Kansas City has a lower sales tax, but he said the rest of Clay County, especially parts of Kansas City, already has a high sales tax. Okay, well, North Kansas City cannot foot the bill. North Kansas City has 5,000 people in it. That is 1% of the Kansas City, Missouri population of about 500,000. There is very unlikely to be anything about a Royal Stadium in the Northland that has anything to do with North Kansas City taxes. There's no tax base. It has to be countywide. And even countywide, I mean, Clay County's got about 250,000 people in it. So you're still talking about a tax that would have to be at least half a penny, which is what is being discussed right now, to justify the team coming up north based on what they claim they need to help with building a stadium. But with all due respect, there's nothing that North Kansas City will have some role in this, but a lot of it's just going to be done between Clay County and, frankly, surrounding communities. If they need extra cops at the stadium, let's be honest, North Kansas City doesn't have the police force to do that in large part. They're going to need help, probably from KCMO. So those are the things that are going to have to get figured out here. It's not, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful to North Kansas City. It's a great community. Stadium could be fantastic up there. I've been a fan of, if the stadium's going to go anywhere and going to leave the K, that's the place to be. But it's going to be done at a county level. not a North Kansas City level. And the man on the street thing of, my taxes are low, I'm happy to chip in. Well, with all due respect there, John, there's not a lot you can 1,000 residents in the community. Coming up, the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, is going to be joining us on 95.7 FM, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Boy, there is a lot to get to with him. As the Daily Mail is writing about Kansas City crime, business owners are fed up, and more with the mayor next.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM.
Well, it's getting to that time of year. It's getting warmer. That means, unfortunately, crime oftentimes will tick up, not just in Kansas City, but around the country for that matter. And that has been a big topic of conversation this week so far for the mayor of Kansas City and in this town, Quinton Lucas, joining us on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio, and always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Mr. Mayor, let's start here. Back and forth that went a bit viral, yourself and Fox 4 reporter Malik Jackson, over text messages that you had with business owners. Listen, your number's out there. People in town who want your number have your number. How would you respond to some folks who are saying that you are not getting back to people in town when it comes to crime in Kansas City?
Yeah, first of all, there is a high volume of messages that come in. I don't think that this is the most important issue. I do, however, think that accuracy and telling the truth and responding when people call you a liar is. Actually last night, I didn't actually add this to social media, although I've done a lot. I actually checked with AT&T and FirstNet, my cell phone provider, and looked to see if there were any text messages at all from these folks. AT&T itself says there are not. I've tried to share that with Mr. Jackson. I would think that he wouldn't want to be seen as a liar or somebody who's just vastly misrepresenting things. I would hope Channel 4 would not. I've asked for a correction. I'll see what they do today. It's kind of an ancillary issue, but as you know, as we talk every week, there's been all this chat about accuracy and all of that, particularly from the government side. The only thing that I ask for is people that are honest the other way. And, I had told them on Saturday, I responded to other people online. I don't think I saw this message ever. It didn't come through. Checked a number of different ways, all that sort of stuff. I actually do know tech somewhat. And then I was able to check last night. So I'm glad that at least my side of things is accurate. If you've looked at their reports on Channel 4 and their interestingly cut video, I would hope that they actually correct the record because Lord knows the way it looks, it's anything but.
So you're saying that even though you and Malik went back and forth to confirm the text message was sent to the correct number and there was a read receipt on it, you're saying AT&T proved that you didn't actually get these messages?
That's correct. So, I find the read receipt actually the most interesting part, but I did post a little bit on the Fox 4 Facebook commentary, kind of at least the shots of where my numbers or the folks who texted me came in. So didn't get the message, don't understand kind of what happened on the other end. I did ask him, the only way you could really look to it is if you had both phones and you saw somebody changed a number or a name on it. I don't want to cast aspersions necessarily because I do actually care about accuracy and don't want to talk about somebody who believes they were writing to me who obviously didn't get the chance to.
So now, the bigger question then, beyond the text message kerfuffle taking place is, you and I have talked every week for 5 years now. We've talked for going on 8 years now. I don't want to say there's nothing new here, but how many different ways can somebody ask you what will do that's new or different when it comes to crime in this town? You do have more business owners seemingly speaking up about it, though, which means there's a lot more concern out there. So what can you do short term? I know long term, police are recruiting, everything else, but what short term do you want to do, can you do to hopefully make this summer season, when the crime upticks, hopefully safer for people?
I think there is kind of an interesting back and forth kind of on can anything be done, what can be done. Step one, I think some cities have been able to address it. I even shared some on social media the other day. The city of St. Louis, I know, has done through their police department a lot more ATV enforcement activities because all these people who are doing this work are doing it for show and TikTok likes or whatever you call them and all of that. I think it's important for the law enforcement side to make the same level of show. I appreciated that out of St. Louis the other day. I think I'd like to see more of it. I think on the other side of things, I would hope that, and I have said this a number of different years, that, we always look at how we're deploying staff in the warm weather months. There may be some operations where you need folks in some areas at times of the year that you don't in others. Obviously, there are more people out. There are more people out in entertainment districts. You saw just a few months ago, we approved more funding for security enhancement in entertainment districts, off-duty police and sheriff's deputies. Obviously, that's necessary. That program is to start pretty soon here in the new budget year, which just started on May 1. So there are things to do, and that's why police department command staff shows up every day. It's why we all keep coming to work, because there isn't really a magic wand solution. I do think opening up detention spaces in our patrol divisions can be something that could be helpful. But I'll actually say this. I got a text message from business owners who somehow were able to get through to me without the big kerfuffle. This morning, talked to me about a break-in downtown. And they asked about the National Guard. They asked about having highway patrol in Kansas City. Those are all things that I would evaluate in terms of having more bodies. If we had highway patrol doing the traffic enforcement on our highways, if that could free up KCPD and other places, I think all of those things need to be looked at. And I'll just say this, and maybe it sounds somewhat self-interested or self-serving, but you've been interviewing me all these years, and people, and Pete, you've seen it. People come at me every month. God, Quinton Lucas did this or did that. I take it on. I ran for the job. I would love for us to see how we can build something different, how we can actually move ahead. Because, kind of saying he didn't respond to my text message and us having stories about it and us still disagreeing, although I think I have the truth, which is the actual telecommunications company, is a bit of a sideshow. I think that what we actually need to do is say, what the hell? We're all together for a few years. We've got to figure out a better path. We understand the problem. We understand there are offenders. How do we have enough bodies on the street to scare them into knowing either they'll be arrested, they'll be intervened with in some way, and that there will actually be consequences?
Do you know what's going on in Baltimore, where they saw their homicides drop dramatically last year? I know we had a downtick as well, but I saw something the other day that Baltimore, in the month of April, dropped their numbers on homicides to a historic low. Now, I know a lot of the crime we're talking about is not necessarily homicide related. It's property crimes, it's theft, it's car issues, things like that. But do you know what Brandon Scott's doing there in Baltimore?
I know very well. Been to Baltimore a few times. I know Mayor Scott very well. I last saw him probably just a few weeks ago. I mean, I'm going to sound woke to you or something, but look, what they have not done is actually increase police staffing. I'm not saying that you reduce it, but they also have the same staffing challenges we did. They also have the same purported prosecutorial challenges that at least people claim that we used to. They have done a lot more in terms of stopping the cycle of retaliation on shootings. They have done a lot more in getting in front of focused deterrence, something our department does, but I'd love to see even more of. That means actually looking at offenders, identifying them, and saying, look, we're giving you a pathway to services if you aren't actually committing this offense. If you do, you'll run into consequences. But no, what Brandon Johnson didn't do, and what he is not, is a Rudy Giuliani with respect to former Mayor Giuliani or some of the others who just said, hey, I'm just going to be tough and shout it and all that sort of stuff. He said, we're going to actually be smart about crime. And in being smart about crime, one of America's most dangerous cities for generations of our lives, where the wire is set, where homicide life on the streets was set, is now vastly safer. I would love for us to take some of the lessons from Baltimore. I got to talk to their police chief, by the way, Pete, this was probably last year, and talk to him about, man, your numbers are down from your highs when you started. All of this other stuff is happening. What did you do? And it is them being smarter on deployment. It is them being smarter on how do you stop the cycle of violence? How do you make sure you're getting more deterrence into the streets? And that's the step you do, rather than all of us kind of saying, oh, what the hell? It's like liberal politicians. Trust me, in Maryland, their politicians are vastly more liberal.
So if it's that simple, why can't Kansas City implement it?
Hey, well, I mean, I don't know. People call me a broken record, Pete. I'd love to. I'd love to tomorrow. I mean, look, if you let me say, and actually I asked this during the budget cycle, we have different patrol divisions, and then we have some like special operations and special investigations divisions, very good amounts of budget. What are all those officers doing? How can they be best deployed? Is there a better way to deploy them? I'd love to see that review right now, right? We have never done that as far as I'm aware, the Board of Police Commissioners, at least not during my 6.5 years there. I think the next thing that I would love to see, how do we keep doing more on the intervention of retaliatory violence side? But I absolutely welcome more investment there. How do we get more cameras? Hell, I proposed red light cameras last summer and was talking about it. I know some people hate it, but if we've got traffic issues and not enough traffic officers, let us have some cameras doing the work there. Let's have officers deployed to things where they're intervening with people doing bad stuff. I mean, these are all things that I'd absolutely adore doing. I'd like to do it more than once a month at a board meeting. I'd like to do it more than just kind of sending letters. For example, after we passed an ordinance on red light cameras, I sent a letter, got a response, kind of all gone nowhere. Guess I need to send a new letter. I mean, this is how we end up here. So something that somebody said in the Facebook comments on some chat I said about the text message palooza was saying, well, what the hell, what is he going to say other than, thank you, I received your message, I'm going to share it with somebody else. That person's not entirely wrong. We need to have some level of change, and this conversation needs to include your frequent guest, the governor. It needs to include our police commissioners. This can't just be a thing where you and me and Facebook and some gotcha questions at Channel 4 and a few others and pissed off business owners are the only ones who actually are in the conversation. We need more people in it to try to get this sort of thing changed in KC.
Well, I think most people would agree with that. And then it's like, what does the implementation look like? And if it's, getting some bad people off the streets before they commit worse crimes, that certainly seems like a noble cause that the police department would also want to get behind, right? I mean, there's no reason that I think Stacey Graves wouldn't get behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pete, I hope, I don't want to blow through your time and your great advertisers, but we're seeing that done. Melissa Johnson, if we're being fair, somebody I was proud to support for prosecutor, every day has got a new release on a new bad person that she's getting off the streets. She is prosecuting heavily. She is bringing intriguing charges against some that we haven't seen for years. Tow operators, desecration of a grave, whatever the heck the police are largely writing up for in Kansas City, Independence, and everywhere else, she's finding charges on them. She's laying charges on them. And by the way, those people go to county jail or should, right? Those are the sorts of things that are happening. At City Hall, and you know this because you read it all, maybe everybody else doesn't, we pass new ordinances every 2 weeks. It feels 5 different ordinances on street racing. I introduced a new ordinance on loitering today to deal with those people that are just dealing with perhaps someone who's unhoused standing outside their spot. I mean, we're doing stuff. I appreciate doing that. What I think at its core, and look, we can see who's to blame or who's not or whatever. I don't care either. The mayor of Baltimore hires the police chief. I guess he can say, do some more enforcement here. And that's fine. That's not the system I live under. But what I would say is when I talk to a David Lopez, who I've talked to before, who is the Manny's owner, who wants more attention to this, he wants more enforcement. Everybody else wants more enforcement. I live in Midtown, so I know this too. When we hear cars and all the issues around us, they want more enforcement. So what the hell? Let's find a way to get more enforcement. Now, I'm not the one who just gets to signal it myself, but I'll convene a Board of Police Commissioners meeting today. Actually, we will all be together to say, hey, guys, is there a way we can get more enforcement? If we don't have the bodies, can we get Highway Patrol to help us as they've done in St. Louis? And if we don't have the bodies for that, is there something else? That's the area of interest that I have. But, look, people want me to play in the text message game and ask me questions and do all that. I'll do that too.
Mayor Lucas on KCMO. I do want to ask you, it came to my attention here in the last couple of days that after former President Biden commuted the sentence of about 2,500 people, there is some concern in law enforcement that we will have, and we are having dozens of people coming back to the Metro, KCMO and KCK, obviously at the top of that list. And these are individuals with, charges of distribution of crack cocaine, methamphetamine, use of firearms, drug trafficking. The politics of it aside from the former president, this is the last thing it seems like Kansas City needs right now. So what do you as the mayor think about this and how this potentially is going to go for a city that doesn't need more criminals on the streets right now?
Pete, I got 99 problems and Joe Biden ain't one. I mean, okay, I guess that happened in the past.
Well, not
Certainly
Biden, but the criminals on the streets could be your problem.
They certainly would, and we're going to try to arrest them and address them in the same way that you would any other criminals that present. I'm not going back over Joe Biden's past pardons or Bill Clinton's or Donald Trump's earlier ones. Hell, I've barely spoken about his Trump's more recent pardons. I think the issue that we need to do is find a way to get these people off the streets. And by the way, to the extent that people wonder my views on detention, I actually believe in locking up people. And you know what? If the answer is that you get a temporary jail that magically we can put up for $1 million tomorrow, and it's going to take 250 people or 300, which is something I've heard, and we can put it in a place in the city that just works, hey, I'm all in. I have a question if it's that cheap and if it's that easy, because nothing in government ever seems to be, but I'm there. I mean, I think what we want to see is that more enforcement. And what we also want to see is ultimately no excuses. In the same way that people don't like hearing from me when I talk about control and all of that, and that's fair. And I balance it, but, that's fair. I just want to hear about enforcement, not what Joe Biden's been up to, not for flipping 2020. Right? When half of our offenders were like 10-year-olds and all of that, and people are like, oh, but they learned bad things back. No, they didn't. They were 10, right? What they have done is grown up in too many situations where we don't have a home to support them and all of that. And so they're growing up learning from the wrong people. What I want us to all see right now is actually enforcement activity. I want to make sure we're there to support enforcement activity to the fullest extent. We will craft every ordinance. We will craft every rule. We will build every facility that's necessary to support that. And to the extent that there are other actors in the state of Missouri, including my police commissioner colleagues, a governor, and anybody else who can hear me, I ask them to be committed to doing the same and removing the politics of liberal cities do bad stuff. Because you're right, Baltimore saw a drop. I know we don't want to say this. St. Louis has seen a decline in homicides. A bunch of other places that are usually worse than us on lists are seeing improvements that are more marked than ours. And I think we can get there by some collaboration from there. And, I'll take whatever it is to do it.
All right, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, as always, for the conversation. We greatly appreciate it. And we will talk to you again next week. Have a good weekend.
And Pete, 816-679-1662 is the number. Test it out. Text me, and then we'll see if you can get through. I'll see y'all later.
Be careful what you wish for. There you go. That is Quinton Lucas on KCMO Talk Radio. He gave it fast, but he just did give his cell phone number. Again, Mark, don't be texting him your parlays, okay? We don't need a mayor caught up in a scandal
Just
of
underdog
betting parlays. Well, he can't anyway. He's in Missouri.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Never mind. I was going to give him a Royals parlay, but nah.
Yeah. And when he goes out to a KU game, place a bet on them.
There you go.
All right. 913-408-7957. Something tells me you got something to say. We'll get to you and more after that conversation with the mayor coming up next. In the meantime, you've got 3 days left, okay? I mean, listen, we've all been there late in the game. Mother's Day's coming up, and you're kind of screwed. That's okay. Our friends at Diamonds Direct are going to help you, all right? Because the flowers fade, but fine jewelry does not. And at Diamonds Direct, as I've dealt with them on many occasions, Angie's got a great operation, fantastic team there. You'll get the white glove service. You will get, first off, people who are not going to be pushy sales folks trying to blow out your budget. They don't do that. You give them your budget. You learn what you're buying, which, listen, as guys going into jewelry stores, that's always risky. I have no idea what I'm looking at. It's intimidating. It's stressful. They'll take all that out of the equation. And whether it's a $500 purchase or a $500,000 purchase, they've got it all at Diamonds Direct. Head on in. Make sure you're taking care of mom before Sunday. All right? Hurry in. Go say hi at 119th and Row. Angie and the team will take great care of you, or start shopping at diamondsdirect.com. Went long there with Mayor Lucas, so we got just a minute here. But Dennis, what do you make of our conversation with the mayor? Go ahead, buddy.
Pete, the first time I called into your show years ago was over Quinton Lucas because the channel next to yours bled over when you had that weak signal. I called him BS. I still call him BS. It's just everything he said. They had the same, talking about Baltimore, staffing problems as we have, basically, he said. Then his excuse later is, we don't have the bodies. Which way is it, bro? Either it is or it isn't. He acts like he's the victim. And his dropping the semi-cuss words, acting tough, no, I don't buy it. And the other thing I've got an issue with, okay, give the receipts that you received, didn't receive the text message to Fox 4 so that they can show us that, no, you're not lying. Because I'm not a very tech person, and the only time I have a problem with text messaging is when I don't hit that little arrow thing to send it.
Yeah, I can tell you're a tech whiz, Dennis. I got to run, my man. And listen, I think getting in the weeds on the text message deal is a waste of time. He's got a very easy excuse. I got 2 kids. I missed the text. But he went to AT&T, and I don't know, he's confirming receipts and the whole deal. So that's a doozy. 913-408-7957. A new pick for Maha you're going to like coming up. Well, if you are a fan of the Make America Healthy Again movement, then you are going to see and be very happy with the President of the United States naming Casey Means to be the next Surgeon General. This comes after the first nominee withdrew. So this came down yesterday, the President of the United States announcing that Casey Means was going to be nominated as our next Surgeon General of the United States of America. As the president wrote on Truth Social yesterday, Casey has impeccable MAHA credentials. That's Make America Healthy Again. And will work closely with our wonderful Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to ensure a successful implementation of our agenda in order to reverse the chronic disease epidemic and ensure great health in the future for all Americans. Her academic achievements, he writes, together with her life's work, are absolutely outstanding. Dr. Casey Means has the potential to be one of the finest Surgeon Generals in United States history. Congratulations, Casey. He writes here. Secretary Kennedy looks forward to working with everybody in another capacity at HHS. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right.
Where's Casey? Where is she?
Where's Casey? We love you, Casey. All right. So to give you a little insight into how Casey is and what she's all about, she worked with RFK when he was running for president. She helped form the alliance between Trump and RFK, give that endorsement to the president from RFK. So she was instrumental behind the scenes. She has been on the MAHA movement for a long time. Here she is on HBO talking about the issues that we face from a health perspective in America and how we have to turn things around. This is Casey Means, the new...
To drug them, cut them, and bill them, which is what we learn how to do. And really what we have here is a disconnection crisis. And the healthcare crisis is one branch of that tree. We're disconnecting the body into 100 separate parts and not seeing as a unified system. And we're disconnecting the body from the environmental conversation, which actually we're really one and the same. You know, we are totally connected to nature, and in destroying nature through the pesticides and the way we're treating animals, our health is a reflection of what we're doing to the earth.
Sounds pretty good to me. I'll take more of that, please. May I have another? When you hear Casey Means and you hear that commentary, that was on Bill Maher's show on HBO. Credit to Bill Maher for having her on. When you hear commentary like that, tell me what you're disagreeing with. Now, some people have noted that she did not finish some of her residency requirements from medical school. And if you want to die on that hill, be my guest. But I'll tell you right now, the credentialed class in medicine has failed us. They have let this country down. They have failed us miserably for years. And we're more unhealthy than we've ever been, collectively speaking, as a country. So I'm sorry if I'm not sitting here fawning over the idea of somebody who graduated from, finished all the requirements from the most elite universities in the country being the next Surgeon General. Somebody came up a little short. I'm sorry, that's not what we need right now. We need somebody who's thinking differently. We need somebody who is outside the box. And we need somebody who's going to be talking about exactly what you heard Casey Means talk about there on the Bill Maher show. And that is a country that, frankly, is getting destroyed right here in the United States. And we don't talk about it. Why? Because, as she said, it is not profitable to heal. It is profitable to keep people sick. It is profitable to drug them, to cut them, and to bill them. And that's what we do in America. And how's it working out for us, by the way? Now, yes, there's a personal responsibility angle to all this as well. I'm not naive to that. I understand, you got to make your own decisions. You got to eat healthy. You got to exercise. Those are all things that you got to do if you want to have a long, healthy life. No doubt about it. But the broader conversation in terms of how we heal America and how we fix our health crisis, and boy, is it real when you got obesity rates at 40% in America, you need somebody who's thinking differently. And Casey Means does exactly that. When you do the same thing over and over and over again with the same kind of people from the same kind of places with the same kind of backgrounds, and you're expecting a different result, at some point, that is the definition of insanity. And that's exactly what we've done in this country for far too long. So, and Casey Means, she'll talk to anybody, to her credit. She's done Bill Maher. She's done Tucker Carlson's show. If you didn't hear what she had to say on Tucker Carlson's show, I thought this was fantastic as well. Take a listen.
They make us sick, but they don't kill us. And then we are drugged for life. You look at what's happening in children. A child born in a hospital in the United States today, within hours of coming from source into this, into this body, the first thing that happens to them is pharmaceutical intervention without really asking, there's barely informed consent about this. That child's eyes are smeared with erythromycin ointment and they're given a hepatitis B vaccine in their first day of life. And what are these two things for? I mentioned this because it's just emblematic of how we're put on the pharma treadmill from the moment we are born in this country for reasons that are very strange. The erythromycin ointment is to prevent chlamydial infections of the eye, which we test women for chlamydia. So why would every baby in the United States need this ointment if the mom doesn't have it? And the Hep B vaccine is for hepatitis B, which is a sexually transmitted disease and IV drug user disease, of course, which babies are not going to be exposed to. And yet every single baby in America is getting the intervention. So from literally the day we are born, we're on this treadmill.
So, why not test the pregnant mother for those?
They do.
Okay, so
they give it to the women who, even if they have tested negative,
which
they give
would
it
be
to
the
babies.
overwhelming majority.
Absolutely.
That was Casey Means on Tucker Carlson's show. She's done Bill Maher. She's done Tucker Carlson. And, I know. And you're already seeing it on social media. You're seeing some of the hit pieces come out, New York Times, CBS, elsewhere. Crackpot! You got crackpot alert! Okay, all right.
You mustard.
I've heard enough of that. This is somebody who is looking at what we've done in this country and saying, you know what? It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not one thing we're doing wrong. We're doing everything kind of wrong. When it comes to diet, when it comes to what we put into our bodies from the day we're born until we're older, it is a holistic approach, and it needs to be looked at differently in the United States. And that scares a lot of people. This conversation scares a lot of power in America today because they've made a lot of money off of America getting sicker and less healthy seemingly by the day. 913-408-7957, our studio line and our text line. New York Times writing here, Dr. Means has also pushed for a concerted campaign to pare back corporate-friendly policies related to the production and sale of food and medicine. For example, she has supported serving more nutritious meals in public schools, investigating the use of chemicals in American food, putting warning labels on ultra-processed foods, forbidding pharmaceutical companies from advertising directly to patients on television, and reducing the influence of industry among drug and food regulators. What part of that do you not like? I'm genuinely curious. What part of that do you say, I can't have that? That's too much. Now, I know some of you are screaming, saying, this is what Michelle Obama wanted to do on healthier school lunches. You're right. And Republicans, in hindsight, were wrong on that. No doubt about it. That was actually an admirable effort by Michelle Obama to make school lunches healthier. And Republicans you're not going to tell my kids what to eat. It's okay, guys. Now, it doesn't mean that they were right about a lot of other things. They were wrong on most things, but they were right on that one. So I give credit where it's due. Let's go to Alex in Overland Park. Hey, Alex, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. So I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 30 years, and I agree everything that you guys are talking about 100%. But the one thing that I would have people keep in mind is when you go to the doctor, you have an interaction with somebody in a hospital or a doctor's office or whatever. I don't want people to start thinking these people are not on my side or these people are out to get me. It's the care model that's the problem. Your doctor, I guarantee you, wants you to be well. They're not trying to push things on you because, maybe they have financial incentives, but they're not supposed to, right? They're not supposed to.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical industry has changed over the last several decades to where that, when I work at a birth center. So 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we had formula reps out there. and they would come out and they'd give candy and they'd give all these treats and stuff to the nursing staff. That's not allowed anymore. So understand there is a marketing shift. The difference is the care model has gotten to disease treatment versus disease prevention. And that's what the Surgeon General nominee is talking about.
Yes.
And that's what we really have to focus on is like having the conversations about your mental health. How do you take care of yourself? Your living situation. What do you eat? How much exercise you? All those things can be really hard. And it's today, that's actually on you as the patient to think about what you're eating, to get outside and touch some grass, to make sure that you're not eating crap all the time. And so, our doctors and nurses and healthcare people can educate us, but really the action point comes from the patient themselves.
I'm so glad that you confirmed and clarified a lot of that, Alex. It's a great point. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You're right. And I want to make sure if that was not clear in my message, you're right. I don't think your nurses and your doctors here around Kansas City are trying to screw you or hurt you. It is a holistic approach. The model is, yes, broken to some degree, and there is a huge element of personal responsibility. Paula, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
I am so excited about this nomination. Casey Means wrote a book, Good Energy, and her story is unbelievable. She was a endocrinologist, graduated #1 in Stanford, and endocrinologist surgeon. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but her own experiences. Her own experiences with her mother's health and her own health led her down this path of searching out other answers. And it's just interesting. I am just so thankful for RFK and her because we need a change.
Thank you, Paula. Have a great day. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Well said. Marie in Missouri. Go ahead, Marie.
Hey, yeah. So I am in my 30s, and I have been struggling with autoimmune disease since I was in my early 20s, and I decided to go with an autoimmune doctor to get some answers. And all they want to do is push this medication, and I've tried multiple different medications, and all of them just make me feel like crap and have terrible stomach pains on top of everything I'm still dealing with. And I said, hey, I don't think this is working. Can I try like a holistic effect? Can you give me a model or, can you help me like with eating better foods and stuff like that? And, look at my labs, and they don't want to do it. And it's just shocking to me that they don't actually want to look at the biologic part of it, and they just want to slap a Band-Aid on it with medicine that is actually worse for me than actually trying to fix the problem. And as a mom myself, I don't want that for my children. And it's just really saddening to me that that's what it's come to. But I'm really excited for, the way that we're going, hopefully the way that we're going into to maybe fix some of these things and take some things out of our foods that are going to affect us later on in life.
I totally agree, Marie. Thank you very much. And, this is what it's really about, taking a different approach. And the conversation doesn't change everything overnight, but it can certainly help trend things in the right direction. Well said. Coming up next, we got some breaking news here from Big Papa Bill Gates making a big announcement. Wow. This is interesting. I'm on board with this. I don't know if that's what he wants to be my response, but I'm on board with this idea. We'll share it with you next on KCMO Talk Radio.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
This news just coming down. I got the push notification from Fox News here in the last couple of minutes. Bill Gates pledges to give away nearly all of his wealth and close his foundation in 2045. Can't come soon enough there, Billy boy. Let's go. No, I'm kidding. I know. He's done some good work for kids in other countries, but I still don't know if I can trust this guy as far as I could throw him. Either way, here's what he's saying. Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates has given himself a 20-year timeline to give away virtually all of his wealth. The Gates Foundation set $1 billion during its first 25 years and will double that over the next 20. So they'll give away $200 billion over the next 20 years. Gates said he made the decision after, quote, reading a lot of books. Huh? All right. Well, what books is he reading that makes you say, I'm just giving it all away? All right. Good for him. So Bill Gates saying here, one of the best things I read was an 1889 essay by Andrew Carnegie called The Gospel of Wealth. It makes the case that the wealthy have a responsibility to return their resources to society. A radical idea at the time that laid the groundwork for philanthropy as we know it today. You know, that's admirable. Of course, it's what you spend your money on and what you give back to, but that is admirable, right? I mean, to say, hey, I can only pass so much of this down. I mean, how do you even pass down hundreds of billions of dollars to your family? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Now, it's your money. You do with it what you want. You built one of the biggest businesses, frankly, you know, one of the magnificent seven, as they call them on Wall Street, businesses in the entire world. So you've earned that right to do with your money what you want. But it's not bad to give it back. The question, as always, is what are you giving it to? That's the question. But I got the push notification from Fox News here in the last couple of minutes. I was like, whoa, okay. All right, here we go. Let's do it. There you go. See you later there, Bill. I'll leave you with this before the news. You hear what CBS said yesterday? CBS this morning talking about, you know, trying to find the next pope. Mark loved it. I sent this clip this morning, and Mark was just, oh, man, he was bent over laughing at about 5:30 in the morning. Here we go. This was CBS yesterday.
They're sitting reading their breviary. That's a book of prayers that clergy have, or praying a rosary, or doing. The one thing we know they're not doing is checking Instagram because their devices have all been confiscated.
I believe the kids call it raw dogging it if you're going to go through a long period of time with no electronic device.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, they're of a certain age, so they might be used to
I just wanted to.
HR! Woo! HR line 3 for CBS This Morning co-host Tony Dockapil. Never heard of the guy, but he's got a sense of humor. So yes, just wanted to share this breaking news that the Catholic cardinals were in fact raw dogging the conclave. Just so
people are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
Oh, that was a little cringy.
Been raw dogging since 1960.
Yeah. I thought you said you were done with kids, man. We had this conversation yesterday.
No, I just thought without electronic apps.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, all right.
No more needs to be said.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see what Fox News has in store for us in 2 minutes. And when we come back, the Kansas City Star is insinuating that when it comes to pride celebrations coming up in Kansas City, Donald Trump is to blame for a lack of sponsorships. I kid you not. We'll get into it next.
in the car, and my phone, anywhere.
KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7, Kansas City's place to talk. It's Mundo in the Morning, now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
Yeah, that's right. It's right around the corner. Don't you know, right? Come on, 8:35. Good morning. Glad you're here on 95.7 FM. We are, 3+ weeks away from a very holy month, Pride Month. I say that a little tongue-in-cheek. Just a little. Just a little. But yes, it is the holiest of months. So that's coming up, and the foundation is being laid by many in media to basically use the 30-day month of June to beat up on Donald Trump, beat up on Republicans, I guess, and anybody who might have questions about what the movement has turned into in 2025.
Harrison Butker's name comes up on day one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yep. He'll be on the list. Don't you worry. Absolutely. There'll be some Harrison Butker stories out there. No doubt in my mind. So Kansas City Star writes this yesterday afternoon. KC Pride Fest lost corporate sponsor money. Trump anti-LGBT rhetoric is blamed. Okay. Before we go any further, I'm going to ask everybody a question. Do you know who was the first president to take office approving of gay marriage?
Donald.
You're right about that.
Such a nice man.
Yes, that's right. It was Donald Trump. It was not Barack Obama. Now, Obama came around to it after he was in office. But the first person to enter the White House approving of gay marriage was Donald Trump back in 2017. Wasn't Obama. Wasn't Bill Clinton. Slick Willie. Go back, obviously, you're not going to find a president. It was Donald Trump. So I just think that little tidbit needs to be out there before we even go any further with this ridiculous story in the Kansas City Star. But we'll continue with the story in the Kansas City Star just for the sake of a couple of chuckles here before you get to the office on a Thursday morning. They write here, Kansas City's Pride Fest, which each June draws 22,000 people to a parade and weekend celebration of the LGBTQIA plus pride, is this year seeing both a loss in corporate sponsors and a reduction in their level of giving. Organizers place the blame on what is currently a $200,000 shortfall directly on the anti-DEI and anti-LGBTQIA plus rhetoric that has emanated from President Donald Trump's White House. Okay, the DEI thing is more about making sure that we have a meritocracy in this country, especially in our government. Has nothing to do with, who's sleeping with who.
Not related.
Not related at all. And when they claim anti-LGBTQIA plus rhetoric, once again, nothing to do at all with anybody being gay. Simply saying, hey, when it comes to men and women's sports, we're not down with that. We're not going to sit here and act like a male should be able to compete against a female at any level of athletics. We're not going to sit here idly and stand by as men try to just haphazardly walk into women's locker rooms, like what happened at the YMCA in North Kansas City, and just, try to treat that as some kind of normalcy. It's not. We're not going to be down with that. That's not fair to women. Once again, nothing to do with anybody who is gay. Totally irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. But that's how this story is framed by the Kansas City Star, because, of course,
we've been throwing around quite a few letters there.
Yeah, I know.
I think the LGB part of TQIA plus has had had enough of the last half of the alphabet there of TQIA plus. They're included so that we can get more victims under the umbrella, you see.
I know.
And so we're always talking about TQIA plus, not so much about LGB.
Exactly.
Interestingly enough.
Exactly. I mean, I think the LGBT folks are getting a raw deal having to deal with everyone on the back end of the alphabet, to be honest. So they announce here, and they write here in the Star, that in March, the St. Louis Pride Fest announced that Anheuser-Busch has no longer opted to support the organization's festival after 30 years of having done so. In Minneapolis, organizers of the Twin Cities Pride Festival opted to remove Target from its annual celebration after the retail giant announced in January it was scaling back its corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So, first off, one of those is St. Louis Anheuser-Busch. I think we all know what happened with Anheuser-Busch and why they might be a little hesitant to go all in on Pride Month. All right? I think we all know what that may, tie back to.
Normalize the bulge.
Thank you. Yes, I think we all know and remember that from a couple of years ago. So they've probably wisely backed off of their politics for obvious reasons. And in Minneapolis, it was the organizers of the festival who took Target out of its annual celebration because they basically scaled back their DEI initiatives. So they made that choice on their own. So now here in Kansas City, they write the Pride Festival scheduled for June 6th, 7th, and 8th. Starts on Saturday, June 7th, Westport Road at 11 a.m. So I'm still waiting to find out what exactly happened here. I mean, we're several paragraphs into this piece on the Kansas City Pride Parade, and I'm still looking for just like some type of evidence that they're not getting the corporate advertisers that they want. And by the way, how much money does it cost to put on a parade? They're like, we're $200,000 short. I mean, I'm just pretty sure you just got to book the dates and book the time, and maybe it costs you some money for security and stuff like that. But saying, boy, we need another $200,000 to put on a parade for what? I mean, I know that they like hire musical acts and things like that, but who are you hiring at that kind of a price point? My goodness. All right, here we go. Let's go further down the list. All right. Into the article. We're about 2/3 of the way down. At this point, a month prior to the event, KC Pride typically has corporate sponsorship commitments equaling $250,000. Instead, so far this year, they only have $50,000. They add the KC Pride website features logos of numerous sponsors for the 2025 event, UMB, Arvist, Ameristar, a lot of lists on here. Vivint Health, CBD companies, things of that nature. Medina, the guy who's helping run this deal, opted not to name organizations that have chosen to no longer support the event. He also would not say which companies had reduced their giving. So this brings up a bigger question, and this is a bigger conversation. Maybe companies reduce their giving because of economic reasons. Is that allowed or no? See, and this is the problem. This is the problem that has developed over many, many years. Didn't happen overnight. We went from a point of, hey, tolerance. It was like, hey, you know what? What happens in somebody's home is not your business, and just ignore it. And it's in the privacy of their home, and that is what it is. And I think a lot of people are like, all right, it's hard to kind of argue against that. All right. I mean, that's fine. And then it became a little more about acceptance. And then it was like a little more in your face, and you've got to accept this. And there are a lot of people who are like, well, I've got things and religious reasons for not agreeing with it and other reasons. So I'm not sure I'm on board with this, and I don't really want to accept it. So I'm not going to. And then we went from tolerance to acceptance to suddenly now we're in the allegiance phase. In the allegiance phase, it is basically demanding you do as you're told, you give as you have done, and if you don't, what are you, a bigot? What's wrong with you? And that's where this thing crept and crept and crept and crept and crept up to the place where now if you say, hey, like, yeah, I was okay with the tolerance side of this, but I'm not looking to be in a place where you're going to hold me hostage and allege that I'm anti-something because I'm not donating, because I'm not, being a sponsor at the levels that you've had in the past. And that's where we find ourselves right now, where it's more of a shakedown in many respects. And you are perceived to be, and in some cases called, whatever, transphobe, homophobe, whatever, if you don't do exactly what you're expected and told to do. And that's not how this whole thing began. And that's where a lot of companies and a lot of people are throwing their hands up and saying, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not going to be shaken down anymore. And frankly, I'm not going to get involved in this stuff that's way too controversial in the eyes of a lot of people.
What you're talking about is exemplified in the Seinfeld episode where Kramer won't wear the ribbon at the walk.
Yes.
He made the donation. No, I don't want the ribbon. That's no, you got to wear the ribbon, right? No, I made the donation. It's fine.
Yes, that's perfect. I love that. That's a great episode. He gives the donation. They give him the ribbon, and he's like, I don't want the ribbon. I gave you the donation. Take my money. I'm not wearing the ribbon. And they chase him out. You're going to wear the ribbon.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Wait. Oh, you must wear the ribbon. Oh, man, Seinfeld was always ahead of its time. That's a great example.
I've been called a hater for eating at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean,
That's what I call when I bring it in, it's a bag of MAGA.
I mean, a bag of MAGA. It's ridiculous. I mean, and that's how this thing has crept out through the years where, it started off with most people saying, hey, you know what? Tolerance, fine. It's out of sight, out of mind. Now you eat at Chick-fil-A and you're called a bigot. Like, where do you draw the line of absurdity? I would have drawn it a long time ago. So there's two angles here. One is that the pride element has been corrupted by the back end of the alphabet mafia that Donald Trump has really focused on when it comes to protecting women, which has nothing to do with anybody who's gay. Nothing whatsoever. It's completely separate and irrelevant. And then the other side is how we've gotten to the point where now the Kansas City Star is going to write pieces that more or less shame the business community for not giving to a pride fest in the way they have in years past, insinuating that it's driven by the president of the United States, an anti-alphabet movement, or something else, when it could be economics, when it could be corporations saying, right now, I mean, there's kind of a pushback to all this. I supported it when it was more pride related, but now I don't want to deal with the back end of the, alphabet. I'm not about that. It's like we can't just sit here and point the finger at people and try to shame them. But that's the goal of this piece. Let's be very clear. That's the goal of it. It's not about putting on a show. It's not about putting on a parade. It's about shaming the business community in Kansas City to do what they want. And that is something that I hope the business community just stands up for themselves on and doesn't feel like they are getting shamed into anything. Because in the end, I would be curious on this too. Like, there is no ROI on this stuff. There isn't. There is zero ROI in any of this. And at a time when a lot of businesses are saying, hey, I got to get ROI to be putting tens of thousands of dollars into some kind of a sponsorship, I'm sorry that this is not going to be the answer, especially when there's controversy surrounding it. And that's not anti-anything. That's just pro the business that I run and operate and own. That's it. 913-408-7957. It's 8:48 on a Thursday morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Did you hear one of our favorite members of Congress? The hypocrisy about flying private. This is just a gold mine. We'll play it for you coming up on KCMO. All right. If you are someone who is trying to figure out the world of artificial intelligence in your business, well, there is a free seminar coming up with my friends over at Centric where you can learn more and attend their free AI and Automation for Business live demo. It is coming up 3 weeks from today, Thursday, May 29th, right off of State Line Road. And if you're a small business owner, medium business owner, manager, whatever, and you know you got to get ahead on this stuff, all you do is go to centric.com/AI, and you'll see a link there to RSVP for the live demo, 8 a.m. on Thursday, May 29th, 3 weeks from today. And make sure that you are registering right now. It'll fill up fast. They did this a couple of months ago. They had 50 business owners show up in Kansas City looking to just learn the ropes on artificial intelligence and how it can work alongside their business. So you have an opportunity right now to do that. Centric.com/AI. That's CENTRIQ.com/AI. Go there now, register for the event, 8 a.m. Thursday, May 29th, and just learn. It's totally free, and you will learn what you're missing out on with the AI movement. It's here. It's not going away. Your competitors are using it. Centric.com/AI to RSVP.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
Did you hear our buddy Bernie Sanders yesterday? He was on with Brett Baer on Fox News. Oh, man. It was just epic. Epic for all the wrong reasons, though, of course, as is always the case with Bernie Sanders. All right?
Oligarchs out there.
I know. He's fighting the oligarchy in his private jets. And that is what Brett Baer asked him about. Now, I give Bernie credit for going on. You know, there not many people, notable Democrats, are going to go on Fox News with Brett Baer. Bernie does, so I give him credit for that. That's where the credit ends. But I do give him credit. He was asked about his private jet rides as the guy who's fighting the oligarchy, and here's what he said. You think I'm sitting in a terminal waiting for a United flight? Come on now.
You know, Alyssa Slotkin, senator from Michigan, she said you shouldn't be using oligarch. It's over people's head. You've gotten criticized from other people. Free Beacon says Bernie Sanders spent $221,000 on private jets fighting the oligarchy tour, paid for by friends of Bernie Sanders. That you've spent millions of dollars in campaign funds on private jet travel over the years. How do you push back on both of those things?
When's the last time you saw Donald Trump during a campaign mode at National Airport?
No. It doesn't. But he's also not fighting the oligarchy.
No. You run a campaign and you do 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line? Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting. That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
Oh, gosh. Now, here's the thing. We're in a moment where politicians don't admit when they're wrong about anything. That's the moment that we're in right now. But I love how Bernie's initial gut reaction there is to be like, but Trump. Yeah, but
Right,
Trump's
yeah.
not the guy trying to tell people they can't drive a gas-guzzling SUV, okay? In the name of
Trying
saving
to get
the
them the
planet.
gas for their SUV.
Yeah. Trump is not the guy who's out there saying to people, I'm fighting the oligarchy as I fly in a private jet. Well, I can only fight the oligarchy by showing up in my private plane to 30,000 people. I have no apologies whatsoever. Trump is not the guy who's out there pulling the Bernie Sanders, acting like he's just a little guy fighting for the everyman as he flies around in a private jet. That's not what Trump is doing. He's actually fighting for the little guy, but he's not cosplaying as, one of us. He's not doing it. And Bernie is. He wants to tell you what car to drive. He wants to tell you how much gas you can emit. He wants to force you into an electric car. Meantime, here are the numbers. The average passenger vehicle emits 4.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. 4.6. Okay? Meantime, what about those who fly private? A private jet can emit 2 tons of CO2 in just 1 hour. And those who regularly fly private may produce 500 times more CO2 in a year than the average person. 500 times more than the average person. While this guy wants to tell you and tell me what cars we can drive, what's safe for the environment as he flies a private jet. But you see, he has to, John.
That's right, Pete. I am busy. I don't have time to rub elbows with the great unwashed masses out there. Right? It's basically what he's saying. He's too good to travel commercial.
You think I'm sitting there at United? 30,000 people waiting for me.
Why is United top of mind, Bert?
Yeah, I wonder that as well. That's a good point. It's like Al Gore. He's got to fly private to go pick up his global warming awards from other countries. Do you realize how absurd and ridiculous you sound? And of course, the answer is they don't. They don't.
He's a nut job.
913-4087-957. More businesses are upset with Kansas City leadership. We've got the details next. 9:05, still waiting on the Pope. I saw this on X. Very funny. If no Pope is decided after 4 sessions, each called cardinal alternates possessions from the 25-yard line. After 2 more sessions, they have to go for the 2-point conversion. Oh, that's well done.
I was thinking when you see the smoke, that's just like the selection is in because we still have to walk up for the announcement. We're going to be excited seeing white smoke, but it's still a few more minutes or time passes before you get the name, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's like the draft, like we were saying.
Roger
the
Goodell.
selection is in.
Yes. I need my draft music that we used a couple of weeks ago
Big
from
music.
ESPN.
Yep.
There we go. The pick is in. We are following and obviously keeping a very close eye on what's happening here in Kansas City as it relates to crime. This week, crime has been at the forefront of the conversation in Kansas City. Now, on this show, it's been at the forefront for the better part of 5 years. But some people are late to the party, and that's okay. Better late than never. But what you have now is more businesses speaking up and speaking out and saying this is not a tenable situation. Let's roll this here. I want to play this package and get your thoughts on it. KCTV5 did this piece on how a guy who owns a parking lot in Kansas City has put up a 6-figure system that every time there's somebody who is basically detected in the parking lot, you get you're under surveillance. You are under surveillance. That's what it sounds like. This is at like 17th and Main, give or take. So KCTV5 went down there, and they got the reaction from business owners all over the place to talk about this. And I'm on the side of surveillance guy because of what this town has been going through. I mean, we know about the Fox 4 drama, Mayor Lucas, Malik Jackson going back and forth this week on more crime. You know, Manny's, the guy that owns Manny's down on Southwest Boulevard, he talked to Channel 9 yesterday and said, if this doesn't get better, I'm going to have to shut this place down. But this one in particular has drawn a lot of criticism. And I've been surprised by the criticism based on the issues that this town is facing. Here's KCTV5.
Hey, Lauren, exactly. So this is motion detected, and all you have to do is walk a few steps back this way or drive through the area. I think it knows me by now, but it'll let you know that you are under there we go. You are under surveillance. The property owner telling me that he is just trying to prevent crime, saying that it's come down to this.
So dystopian.
Just kind of alarmed more than anything.
Anytime you walk or drive into these 2 parking lots off 17th and Main Street, you're going to be greeted by this.
We have a lot of weddings here.
David Epstein is the owner of Tomstown Distilling, which is directly across the street from the parking lots.
So in between saying I do, they have to hear you're under surveillance.
Epstein believes this loud voice is turning customers away.
We have seen our weekday sales go down, and I attribute that 100% to that.
I spoke to the owner of the lots to get some answers. He tells me, quote, while spending 6 figures to improve security was not something we wanted to do, we felt we had no choice. Since installing these systems, we've seen a major reduction in property crimes on these 2 lots with no stolen cars. Our tenants and businesses that use these lots have expressed their appreciation for the investment we've made in security.
All right. Well, I totally disagree with Tomstown owner David Epstein. He's mad at the property owner across the street for putting up his own security because he can't trust the city that he pays taxes to keep his clients and his residents who use that lot safe. So he invested 6 figures in this system. And yeah, it's kind of annoying.
We're under surveillance.
But you know what? If I know that if I park there, I'm going to come back to my vehicle not being broken into or stolen, I'll park there every time. Yeah, it's a little annoying. Get over it. I'd rather have my car there when I come back. And for anybody to think that at Tomstown, which I've been to Tomstown, I mean, you know, it's been a while, but we've been there and we've had a drink there and it's a nice place. But to think that somebody's not going there because of an annoying noise or voice coming out of a parking lot across the street, I'm not buying that for a second. Okay? Maybe your business is down during the week because people don't want to go to your park because of the crime that's happening around there. David, you ever think of that?
Maybe it'd feel better if Quinton Lucas voiced the message like at the airport.
Yeah. I came home to that on Sunday. I was like, really? Come on. Can I wait to hear Quinton Lucas's voice till Monday morning? As a guy who does this for a living, you're killing me here.
So it's the pedestrian thing that goes, wait.
Yes.
Wait. I'm like, dude, I'm waiting.
Yeah. It's like the same voice, too. That guy must make a killing. I need to get that job. Jeez, that's a lot easier. So you hear that, and you say to yourself, hey, this is because business owners have been forced to make their own decisions to try to keep their places of business safe. They've been forced into this. And for a fellow business owner to somehow claim that that noise is why their business is down, dude, I mean, you've been living under a rock in this town? You're right there in the heart of Crossroads. People don't want to be out there after it gets dark. Heck, they don't want to be out there when it's starting to get dark. Our business is down because of that annoying voice in the parking lot. My God, there is no way. I mean, that might be your opinion, but you got to have something to back it up. Outside of like one person told you that the voice is annoying and they're not coming back. If you like Tom's Town that much and they make good drinks, you go there for the drinks. And if you like the drinks that much, you're not going to turn around and leave because of a voice from a parking lot across the street. That's ridiculous. Brandon's in Kansas City. Hey, Brandon, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Pete. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, man. What's happening?
Actually, just giving a call. I'm actually a district manager for a parking company. I run properties from the city market all the way to the plaza. And the big issue that all of us operators are facing down here is the police shortage, the overpacked jails, the same repeat offenders that are getting catched and released like they're fishing, and they're not getting any keepers. They're just letting everybody go, and it's a pain. We have lists of perpetrators that we see as repeat offenders that go to these parking garages and lots and continually, break into cars, steal Kias, smash through gates. All sorts of nuisances. It's a hassle. It's a pain in the butt, but it's definitely city mismanagement. And that monitoring system, there's not a lot of those in the city, and they're really pricey to have those, to have that option. But what else do you do when there's no one else that's stepping up to stop these perpetrators?
So what happens when you guys reach out to the city and say, hey, it's the same cast of characters we're seeing all over the place?
They don't really, they say the same thing. Staffing shortages. They keep all the mobile soup kitchens that keep bringing a lot of these people down here by the library downtown and other areas that keep bringing these people. They're not worried about their food. If they quit feeding the homeless, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, in this area, it'll stop a lot of these issues, as they're not worried about food, smashing all these cars or doing all these different crimes, and it's just the same old. They're not really giving us a direct answer. All the town hall meetings I've been to, but it's frustrating. It's a daily occurrence, and I don't see anything getting better unless there's more repercussions for people and consequences.
How long you been on the job?
3 years.
Okay. Have you seen it get steadily worse? About the same over those 3 years?
About the same. It's been the same since I've been down in this market here.
And then what do you tell people when they're coming back to broken, car windows and stolen vehicles and things like that?
It's kind of repeated. Get a hold of your insurance company, file a police report, because all these garages, it's park at your own risk. So I mean, we don't have any liability because we can't vet a lot of the people coming in to the garages because they can pull a ticket or whatever means they can to get on the property. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's I would tell anybody that comes downtown, don't have anything in your vehicle. I tell some repeat offenders that have their car broken into over and over, just keep your doors unlocked and nothing in your car. It kind of sucks to say that, but at the end of the day, these thieves ain't smart. I had a car that had a window broken into, and 3 days later, someone else broke into another window because I didn't realize the other window was already broken into. So there's not a lot of smart criminals down here. So I would just say don't leave anything in your car if you're going to come down to town to the urban core, or if you're going to an event, don't bring your firearms because those are the hot target items that people are looking for.
Wow. Well, thank you for that, Brandon. I really appreciate the input, man.
It's not a problem. I thank you guys. You guys are doing the Lord's work. I appreciate you guys, and not a problem, man.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you, man. Have a great day. We're just the messenger here. That's it. We're just the intermediary. But think about that. What do you think John Sherman's thinking about right now as he considers putting a $2 billion baseball operation downtown? Can't you say he dodged a bullet, no pun intended, with that vote last year going down to the crossroads? You think John Sherman's seeing the news cycle this week and being like, you know what I got to do? I got to put that $2 billion stadium right next to Union Station. That's what I got to do.
I got to get me one of those. You're under surveillance.
Yeah,
yeah, right? Imagine that at Royal Stadium or Arrowhead after a Monday night game.
You know what? If that thing's in the parking lot outside of the stadium, a Tuesday 1 o'clock pitch against the Twins, you might hear that thing inside the stadium, right? 913-408-7957. Now, what are business owners saying when it comes to potentially leaving Kansas City? We'll get to that, plus your calls, your reaction. 913-408-7957 coming up next on KCMO.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
Uncanceled is 40 minutes away on 95.7 FM. You've got Manny's down there on Southwest Boulevard. Their owner's getting very loud. Talked a couple of days ago to Fox 4, and yesterday Channel 9 KMBC had a big report as more and more business owners are starting to speak up around Kansas City about the crime. For years, we could only get Bill Nigro, who owns a bunch of buildings down in Westport, to speak out. And there was a time when Bill would come on the show and he would say, hey, some of my tenants don't want me to talk like this about the crime down there. They don't want any part of it. And now, finally, people are like ripping the Band-Aid off. They're saying enough is enough. And in the case of Manny's, their owner's saying, I may have to walk.
Well, for more than 4 decades, Manny's has been a staple here in Kansas City, but crime is threatening their future.
This is not about politics. This is not about who you voted for. It's about protecting our home. It's about...
I'm just going to stop right there, and I'll continue. But it is about politics. Okay, it is. I know they're trying to soften this whole thing because they don't want to be seen like some type of conservative in a blue city being upset with crime. No, it's not political in the sense that we all want the same thing, but it is political because there's one political party that has failed on this issue for half a decade now and is trying to backtrack like Homer Simpson walking into the bushes. They run out, defund the police, rah, rah, we don't need cops, send out the... psychologists to take care of people. And now it's like, wait, that wasn't us. Nope. We're going to just scoot on back here into the bushes and everything's going to be A-okay. So I understand why he's prefacing these comments by saying this isn't political, but it is political. It is. Everything is right now. Sad to say, but everything is.
Us.
Owner David Lopez says crime is pushing his business to a breaking point.
Bricks being thrown through their front doors, break-ins, cars being stolen, the ATV, the dirt bikes, the all these vehicles that are running up and down.
He's invested in private security to keep Manny safe, but he says it's not enough. He's calling on city leaders to do more. The mayor acknowledges the problems and is working towards stepping up police presence in the area.
This sort of activity happens all the time at certain places. We do look to KCPD command staff and everyone to make sure that they are deploying folks in those areas necessary to do it.
The thought of relocating or even closing is unthinkable for a business that's been in his family for generations. But Lopez says it's now on the table.
For the first time, probably ever, those concepts are on the table. I do not want to leave my home, but when I start to feel danger for the people that I employ and for the people that walk through my doors, I'm not going to wait for that to completely unravel.
All fair points by Mr. Lopez, the owner of Manny's. That's from Channel 9 KMBC last night. But it is political, to be very clear. And now you've got the Daily Mail. I shared this yesterday on X, and the Daily Mail headline read as follows. Midwest city's downtown is now Mad Max-style hellhole where locals are scared to go out after 8 p.m. Kansas City has been blessed from the standpoint of getting to hide behind St. Louis as the major city with far worse crime in Missouri, and even a city like Chicago, which is a top 3-4 city population-wise in the country, and is kind of viewed as that Midwest city where they can't handle crime. So we've been able to kind of hide behind both of those cities. But now if the Daily Mail's writing about you, you know that this thing is getting worldwide attention. And that is not good for, obviously, Kansas City. It's not good for business. It's not good for tourism. It's not good with the World Cup coming up in, 14 months. Not good for any of that. Wes is up in the Northland. Hey, Wes, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Yeah, Pete, when the Brit tabloids are bagging on you, it don't get much worse than that, right?
Yeah, it's a tough spot.
But there is an opportunity here because think of the slogan, come to the World Cup in Kansas City and experience a Mad Max-style hellhole for yourself.
Right? Yeah, the problem is most people, they're not looking to pay top dollar for that. And if they're coming from third world countries, they can get that in their own backyard.
But if you sell it right, there may be an opportunity. When I saw that headline, I was like, oh, my Lord, it can't get any worse than that, man. But, hey, you never say never, right?
Hey, you know what? I guess if the city needs your marketing creativity, they know how to find you, Wes and Gladstone.
Well, I've offered it to you, but you've smartly always turned me down, so I don't think there's much hope.
I'm just waiting for that one bulletproof idea you've got. I'm not sure that's it, but you know what? You keep coming up with ideas, you're going to hit one eventually, buddy.
There you go.
Yeah.
A blind hog strikes an acorn every once in a while.
Ain't that the truth there, Wes? Thank you.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate
You
it.
still poor, broke, busted, and disgusted.
That could be the tagline, too. I don't know. A lot of things may work. But this is not what the city of Kansas City, Missouri wants to be dealing with or now being known for with 14 months till the World Cup, where this city is going to be on a national stage. While the city also tries to figure out how to keep the Royals in Kansas City, Missouri. And frankly, the best way to do that might be what we talked about earlier this week. Justify a way to, at least in the short term, keep them at the K. Keep them at the K. I mean, it's not impossible. I'm not saying it's likely. It's not impossible. Mayor Lucas was, I would say, testy this morning. And if you, all right, John's confirming that. And I will share one of the highlights.
Step back.
Yeah, I will share one of the highlights on that coming up next in our caller of the day on KCMO.
KCMO, Kansas City's place to talk on 95.7 FM and 710 AM, a Cumulus media station.
On Thursday's Guy Benson Show, we'll discuss and analyze the politics of the day, plus what's this big announcement Trump is teasing, coming up at 2 o'clock on 95.7 KCMO.
Speaking of Guy Benson, tickets still available. A few tables left. If you got a group of 10, you want to join us for Guy Benson's event here in Kansas City, Thursday, June 12th at Boulevard. Meet and greet, dinner, drinks, the whole 9 yards. I'll be there. Keesman as well. I think there's maybe 5 tables left. If you got a group of 10, you get a discount on the table, by the way, versus buying individual tickets. You can do that as well. All the information is at KCMOTalkRadio.com. So I'll set up the caller of the day first by telling you and sharing with you some of what Quinton Lucas had to say this morning. So I shared this early this morning at about 7 o'clock. It came from me from law enforcement in Kansas City. There is serious concern that about 31 people are coming back to the metropolitan area, 11 to KCK, 21 to KCMO. And these are individuals that had their sentences commuted by Joe Biden. You may recall at the end of Joe Biden's term in office, which I know we're all trying to forget, but at the end of that term, Biden pardoned everybody in his family, which got most of the news. And then he also commuted the death sentences of 37 federal prisoners, and he made them life in prison without parole. But there were a total of 2,500 people that Joe Biden commuted the sentences of. And these are individuals who are convicted of nonviolent drug crimes. And the administration said, hey, they're nonviolent drug crimes. They're serving far longer sentences than they would receive today. So we're going to basically commute the sentences, let them off the hook, right? So now we've got a few dozen people coming back to Kansas City. This is happening in the weeks ahead. Basically, federal law enforcement has warned local law enforcement here around Kansas City that these individuals are coming back. Now, who are these people? As I was told by folks in local law enforcement, these are violent individuals. Oftentimes did really violent things. They then threaten any witnesses to get off the hook, and they get busted later on like drug charges. But these are people involved in serious crimes, shootings, things like that. But they know how to intimidate any potential witnesses to not get busted for those serious crimes. So the charges are distribution of crack cocaine, methamphetamine, both, use of firearms, drug trafficking offenses. These are violent individuals. One of my tipsters in law enforcement told me that most of them are violent people who ran large drug operations. And they are affiliated with multiple street gangs in and around Kansas City. They're also the same people that local, state, and federal law enforcement worked hard to get off the streets. So you had the men and women in this community put their lives on the line to get these bad guys off the streets. Joe Biden's basically told them all to go home. Go home to the same communities that you were terrorizing that landed you in a federal prison. You want to talk about something that should not be political. I mean, what is the justification for any of this? I would say that Joe Biden should know better, but he shouldn't because the guy was totally out to lunch for 4 years in the White House. And as Bill O'Reilly calls him, he's the second worst president in American history. And not that we needed more evidence of that, but this is more evidence of that. And where do you think these people are going to terrorize now? Where are they going back to? They're not going back to Leawood, okay? They're going to be in the poorest communities and the most vulnerable communities in and around Kansas City. And those are the communities that they're going to terrorize with people who cannot get out. They can't afford to get out. And they're stuck there. You've got, single moms with kids working 2 jobs. And now these kids potentially are going to have these criminals walking around the streets doing God knows what. The same people that Joe Biden insisted for 50 years he was trying to help. He left them one parting gift, and it was a big screw you and a double middle finger, just like he had done to these people for half a century that he was in elected office. But as Joe infamously said,
You have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, And you ain't black.
That's right. So I asked Mayor Lucas about this morning. And needless to say, he wasn't digging it.
Pete, I got 99 problems and Joe Biden ain't one. I mean, okay, I guess that happened in the past.
Well, not
Certainly
Biden, but the
federal
criminals on the streets could be your problem.
That they certainly would, and we're going to try to arrest them and address them in the same way that you would any other criminals that present. I'm not going back over Joe Biden's past pardons or Bill Clinton's or Donald Trump's earlier ones. Hell, I've barely spoken about his Trump's more recent pardons. I think the issue that we need to do is find a way to get these people off the streets. And by the way, to the extent that people wonder my views on detention, I actually believe in locking up people. And you know what? If the answer is that you get a temporary jail that magically we can put up for $1 million tomorrow, and it's going to take 250 people or 300, which is something I've heard, and we can put it in a place in the city that just works, hey, I'm all in. I have a question if it's that cheap and if it's that easy, because nothing in government ever seems to be, but I'm there. I mean, I think what we want to see is that more enforcement. And what we also want to see is ultimately no excuses. In the same way that people don't like hearing from me when I talk about control and all of that, and that's fair. And I balance it, but, that's fair. I just want to hear about enforcement, not what Joe Biden's been up to, not for flipping 2020, right, when half of our offenders were like 10-year-olds and all of that, and people are like, oh, but they learned bad things back. No, they didn't. They were 10. Right? What they have done is grown up in too many situations where we don't have a home to support them and all of that. And so they're growing up learning from the wrong people. What I want us to all see right now is actually enforcement activity. I want to make sure we're there to support enforcement activity to the fullest extent. We will craft every ordinance. We will craft every rule. We will build every facility that's necessary to support that. And to the extent that there are other actors in the state of Missouri, including my police commissioner colleagues, a governor, and anybody else who can hear me, I ask them to be committed to doing the same and removing the politics of liberal cities do bad stuff. Because you're right, Baltimore saw a drop. I know we don't want to say this. St. Louis has seen a decline in homicides. A bunch of other places that are usually worse than us on lists are seeing improvements that are more marked than ours. And I think we can get there by some collaboration from there. And, I'll take whatever it is to do it.
Well, he wasn't digging the Joe Biden line. Didn't like hearing about old Joe, I guess.
Move away in right angles, kind of like a tornado, right? You hear that, whoop, other way.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, our conversation with the mayor led to our caller of the day on KCMO.
Hello? It's the Mundo in the Morning Caller of the Day on KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7.
We got just a minute here, but Dennis, what do you make of our conversation with the mayor? Go ahead, buddy.
Pete, the first time I called into your show years ago was over Quinton Lucas because the channel next to yours bled over when you had that weak signal. I called him BS. I still call him BS. It's just everything he said. They had the same, talking about Baltimore, staffing problems as we have, basically, he said. Then his excuse later is, we don't have the bodies. Which way is it, bro? Either it is or it isn't. He acts like he's the victim, and his dropping the semi-cuss words, acting tough. No, I don't buy it. And the other thing I've got an issue with, okay, give the receipts that you didn't receive the text message to Fox 4 so if they can show us that, no, you're not lying. Because I'm not a very tech person, and the only time I have a problem with text messaging is when I don't hit that little arrow thing to send it.
Yeah, I can tell you're a tech whiz, Dennis. I got to run, my man. And listen, I think getting in the weeds on the text message deal is a waste of time. He's got a very easy excuse. I got 2 kids. I missed the text. But he went to AT&T, and I don't know, he's confirming receipts and the whole deal.
That's it, man.
So that's a doozy. There you go. Dennis, our caller of the day on KCMO. If you missed it, we did get into the back and forth with Fox 4's Malik Jackson that started the conversation with the mayor. So that will be up on the podcast after the show. Subscribe, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Steve, go ahead. You're in KCK. What's up, man?
Yeah, P, you're doing a great job, man. Turn up the heat on these dudes.
I looked on the Drudge Report, and Kansas City is on the front page, man. This is a good thing. We got to have these guys. They're collecting all this free money from everywhere, and they have no skin in the game. And maybe if they figure out they're not going to get their little downtown baseball or toy train, and the media keeps putting heat on these guys, maybe things will change and we won't become Baltimore a hellhole. The Drudge Report says it's a Mad Max style hellhole in the downtown area with the ATV street racing. So I'm all for it, man. Let's reform this thing before the World Cup. They've got a fire under their butt finally to do something.
Yeah.
with this communist World Cup or whatever they want to call semi-socialist World Cup. This may work in our favor. This may actually work in our favor and reform an seems like an unreformable system in Jackson County. I just want to get Frank White back at the Monarchs where he should be, tapping rears and asking where they're going to go to dinner, where they're going to go to Gates Barbecue or
thank you, Steve. All right. Thank you. Take a breath, buddy. Take a breath. Okay. Take a breath. I appreciate the point. Yes, that was on
sugar
Drudge.
cereals that Art K's talking about.
Yeah. That was also on Drudge. It was a Daily Mail story that we've talked about throughout the morning that was on Drudge Report yesterday and got worldwide attention. Midwest cities downtown is now Mad Max style hellhole where locals are scared to go out after 8 p.m. This has now been a top story, the crime in Kansas City, not just violent crime, homicides, but, the property crime. And that's where most of the businesses are at right now, and they're speaking out. And that's what's made this really a terrible week for Quinton Lucas. This is one of the worst weeks he's had probably since Kamala lost, because that was his ticket out of town. Kamala getting the appointment was his way to kind of wash his hands of this whole thing. So I can't think of a worse week for him over the last 6 months than this one, because now you've got a lot of local media attention. You have TV stations all over this in a way that, frankly, they haven't been. And I don't know what exactly has changed for them that made this top of mind, because this has been going on forever. This is nothing new. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's all his fault, but when you're the face of the city, obviously, you're going to catch a lot of the heat, whether you like it or not. And that's the job that he signed up for. And he admitted as much this morning. But when Baltimore is coming off in April, and this is also something I asked him about, Baltimore's coming off of its second lowest month of homicides in like decades. And we're trending up from last year, up 13% in homicides year to date. It's not a place you want to be. 913-408-7957. It's good to be here on KCMO. Kevin Keatsman uncanceled is 15 minutes away. All right. If you're sitting there right now, you're waking up this morning, maybe you got out of the shower and you got some type of plumbing issue. That's the worst, but we've all been there. And that's where my friends at The Plumbing Pro can help you right now. All right, so everybody else is trying to be the plumbing pro, because if you Google the plumbing pro, you'll see sometimes other plumbing companies trying to end up higher on the Google search list. So the easiest way to get a hold of Steve and his team is go to theplumbingpro.com. They are local owners and local operators, and they have been since day one in 1978. What more can you ask for? They will give you reliability, professionalism, quality workmanship, transparency, and great customer service. And when you look at their Google reviews, speaking of Google, they got a 4.8 with like hundreds of reviews. What more could you ask for? So when you need a plumber, you really need The Plumbing Pro here in Kansas City. That's theplumbingpro.com, theplumbingpro.com.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM.
9:53, final few minutes on KCMO 95.7 FM. We have had a very busy show this morning, and the topic and the issue of crime in Kansas City has unfortunately been top of mind. It was part of our conversation with the mayor. It has highlighted local news last night, basically every channel. Now, in fairness, I didn't check Woke 41. They might have some sob story for somebody as they try to portray the victim as somehow the criminal and the criminal as the victim. But I'll have to check that out later after the show wraps up. Let's go to Kevin and Lee Summit. Hey, Kevin, you're on KCMO. Good morning.
Hey, Pete. Good morning. I think the numbers. I think the numbers in Baltimore. I think they're higher than they say, and I think the numbers in Kansas City are also higher. I can't help but wonder every Democrat city throughout the country. It's always high crime, overregulated, and I really believe the reason why it's run that way is the elites have set it up that way so they don't get their hands dirty, and when everything falls down, they can point fingers at the people in charge. And it's all by design, man. I mean, I think the country, the way everything's going, just like Trump's hands are tied with all the judges that are elected, I think they want complete chaos in the country. That's why they're allowing the illegals. They're fighting the extradition and all this other stuff because they want martial law. I think the big picture is martial law. The Democrats want the country to go to hell, and they want more control, more power. And what's the best way to do it? Cause rapid chaos.
Kevin, thank you, man. Have a great day. You know, here's the one thing I will say. The one thing I'm somewhat sympathetic to, while I disagree with basically all of the broad-based Democrat policies in major American cities, the one thing that you can't blame them for is something that Quinton Lucas alluded to in the clip I just played. He said, we don't have support in the homes. And that's more of a generational, cultural, countrywide conversation that, you know, we'll talk about here on KCMO. But listen, the reality is in many of these urban cores, the data is overwhelming. The dad's not in the home. The kids will not have the chances that they need to have, the opportunities that they need to have, and it's not going to end well for them. And poverty breeds more of that, and it will absolutely destroy these communities from the inside out. Now, that does not give them, I'm not giving them any excuses for their bad policies. I'm just saying that is one part of the cultural rot, and that's what it is, cultural rot, that the politicians don't really have any short-term control over. Let's go to Rick, Lafayette County. What's up, Rick? You got a minute, buddy. It's all yours.
Hey, Pete, I just wanted to say I loved it when I moved to Kansas City in '85. The city was wide open and Independence was wide open. You could go to Santa Calagon Days, stay after dark. Took the kids down to live concerts at Crown Center and all that. And now I avoid going to Kansas City and Independence whenever I can. And if I do, I always carry when I go down there. And I hate leaving my gun in my car.
Yeah, can't blame you at all.
And I don't know how to get around that. I don't know if there's even a solution for that. Smarter minds than mine would have to figure that out.
You know, and that ties back to something too, you know, the economic drain. Manny's, the guy that owns Manny's there on Southwest Boulevard, said we used to turn over our third table by 8 p.m. Now it's a ghost town. So there are serious economic implications for all this as well. People spending less money, people not spending their money. There's too many good places to eat around town. You don't have to go to the true downtown urban hub anymore for that. So that's something, too, that these cities are going to struggle with moving forward, including Kansas City, of course. Have a great rest of your Thursday. It's going to be beautiful today. Get out there, enjoy it. Kevin Keatsman, Uncanceled, is next on 95.7 FM KCMO.